part of my purpose in this life is to undo some of the things that my families have had a hand in. And we're looking at a real serious problem, especially in the Western world, because everything that they think is history and that they believe is in fact made up stories and allegories for much deeper actual knowledge, but they're dressed up in a way and given to the masses in such a way that it's total deception. And I'm of the mindset that we don't get to judge somebody what they're capable of understanding, and to hold back knowledge because you think someone can't handle it is not really your responsibility, and it's not really your right to do that. Now, you have a right to not give somebody knowledge, but that would be your choice. And when you withhold knowledge from people, they stay unintelligent. They stay at a savage level of understanding everything, and then they behave more like savages. Whereas the creative class and the priest class that's behind this knowledge, they don't behave like savages, which is why they don't incur the consequences of the awful behavior that they're able to dupe the masses to practicing or to engaging in. And so in order to undo the condition or change the condition that we're facing as a culture, we're going to have to start. It's not just about learning about the surface level conspiracies and the corruption. You have to also look at what causes a mind to think it has the right to do those things. What causes somebody to think a certain way? What programs someone's behavior? And in order to get to the causal factors of what's doing that, you need to look at all the history and all the nonsense that's been dressed up as truth, when in fact it's nothing but lies in the form that they're given. But if you understand the truth that is encoded in all that stuff that's being passed off as actual, well, then it goes back to being truth. So they actually can hide behind the fact that they never gave you a lie in the first place. They just gave you the truth and you didn't know how to recognize it. And so part of my responsibility for doing this work is to, correct my own lineage's history and behavior as well. And so this is a great opportunity to do that. And I think everybody's going to come away from this looking at scripture and looking at symbolism in a different light.
Yeah.
Perfect. The majority of the information that we're going to cover today is found in Book 2, The Blackest of All Magic. Book 1 is an alchemical text. It's written to teach the reader a skill set and to strip away certain impurities in their thinking, and then get them to start learning how to use the language of the birds and start thinking like the priest class, like the creative class. And there's some entry level conspiracy stuff involved just to make my point, but it really sets the stage for Book 2, which goes into much of the legal things that people have been covering over the last year or so. I published this, years ago, and it really is the blackest of all magic when you start looking at the legal fiction world and where that comes from and the trust system built up around that, especially like the ecclesiastical nature of the control system that we're faced with that really came into prominence during the 1400s. It started before then, and don't get me wrong, it was powerful before then, but the Vatican, especially the church, accrued the majority of its power during the 1400s, where you really see the massive shift in the control it has. And then the beautiful part of the Blackest of All Magic book is that there's the material that we're covering today. And that material is beautiful, and it's going to raise people's consciousness and spirituality, and it sets the tone for book 3, which is mostly a work of art in terms of the symbolism. There's very little conspiracies involved with it. The tone by then has totally changed, and now we're learning hieroglyphics. Now we're learning color symbolism, and I'm also doing my part to show where I see astrotheology being encoded in historical events, and why I no longer accept them as historical events and people, because I now see symbolism encoded in everything they've taught us. So it's not just the Bible, it's not just the legal system. They've literally, if you the way this, it's not just a place like Egypt, which was never called Egypt, or Greece, which was never called Greece. Much of what we think of today as historical, even in locations, is 100% fiction. And they took astronomical texts, they converted them into allegories, told us that that was history, and then they started naming locations after their allegorical fictional places, so that it adds to the mystique. And so what we call places in the modern day, they never existed as such, and there's no history as that. So we're basically living in it's like converting this world into like a video game. And now you see it with the money and everything. It's all going into digital ether, fantasy-based reality.
The thing about place too is that is a noun, you know? We're actually no place at any time other than conceptually. So just that idea is very connected to the nomen, the Latin word for name, which is no man, nomen. There's no man in the name. The name is just fiction. So like it's the same type of black magic throughout. It's the magic of the name, you know, and we're going to get into that deeply with so much name decoding in the slides that are coming up. I'm super excited. We have a lot to unpack. I don't know about you, but you think we can jump into the Royal Stars here?
Yeah, let's jump into it. And as you do the first slide, I'm going to go into basically some preface type language that just lays what we're about to go into. Okay, great. So that's all 4 of them. As you see that this knowledge is encoded in the Wheel of Fortune, because that's what the Wheel of Fortune is. It's the Zodiac. But it's very important to lay the foundation so that there's no confusion to the symbolism. So in the fixed signs, you have the equinoxes and the solstices. You have the vernal equinox, which would be in Taurus, or I'm sorry, in scratch what I just said. I just made a mistake. In the fixed signs, you have the royal stars, which are going to be the subject. In the cardinal signs, right before them, you have the equinoxes and the solstices. So the vernal equinox is going to be in Aries. Right after that is going to be the royal star Aldebaran, right, which is the bull's eye in Taurus. Now, why this is significant?
I meant to put that in the top left. I screwed up the order there. Yeah, but
there's
an order to this. That's important.
So you know what's funny is now you can see the predicament that the church is in, right? Because when they're you can just hear how I made a mistake in just articulating this. The subject is very difficult to. It's one thing to know it, then it's another thing to conceptualize it, and then to regurgitate it or to communicate it using rhetoric. It's challenging. So it's very easy to mix this up, and I think that's why my work stands out, is because I correct the record. And there's a lot of people that have done great work on this, but they've gotten things wrong and mixed names up, and they haven't gotten everything 100% right. So we're going to do that today. But anyways, what I want to lay the foundation is where things exist in nature. So if you were to look at the zodiac, let's just start for fuck's sake, we'll start at the vernal equinox. The very next fixed sign would be Taurus, right? So all these royal stars in the Four Evangelists are the fixed signs of the zodiac. So the very next fixed sign after Taurus would be Leo. Then after that, it would be Scorpio. And then after that, it would be Aquarius. You see the Bible getting it wrong. And I no longer address the Bible. I think it's a mistake at this point just because nobody can produce an original scripture. So all you're doing is addressing what man has already perverted and fucked up and gotten way out of whack. But just for the sake of my argument, if you were to look at something like Ezekiel 1:10, it would read, "They four had the face of a man and the face of a lion on their right side. And they four had the face of an ox on the left side. They four also had the face of an eagle." Do you see what's wrong about that?
I grabbed that verse in a later slide, actually.
That's fine. We'll see it. We'll recover it. But
Oh no, yeah, when we get back to it, you'll see it a whole new way because we have a riddle involved.
do you see what's wrong about that? The face of a man. Well, if that's the man is going to be Aquarius, and then the face of a lion. So what comes first? Taurus, springtime, or Leo, summer?
And that's the whole problem. It makes it difficult to see the parallel between symbolism systems if you're looking at it out of order. That's and gives you like plausible deniability in some sense. The next slide actually shows us this as we're going to examine it with the four evangelists right here. John, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, the correct order. And we see the man for John also. Well, hold on. You said this was the correct
Yes.
order.
Go back to the Wheel of Fortune slide.
Let's do that.
I'll leave it up. Leave it up. So then there's another scripture that quotes, and I forgot to correct this or comment on this with Crow, but in Revelation 4:7, it starts with Leo, and it says, "And the first beast was like a lion, and the second beast was like a calf, and the third beast had the face of a man, and the fourth beast was like a flying eagle." Now, what that's doing is it's going in reverse. So if you were to look at that card, in the four corners of that tarot card, that's the four angels, or the four royal stars, the four evangelists. So you'll see in the bottom right is Leo, then to the left is Taurus, then in the top left is Aquarius, and the top right is Scorpio. In case somebody isn't aware, the eagle is the higher symbol of Scorpio, which is the higher mind transcending the lower nature, since Scorpio corresponds to the sexual organs, and it corresponds to the fall when the sun's dying in autumn, and it's losing its light, and the days are getting shorter and colder if you're north of the equator. So the problem with that, I think Crow suggested, well, he thought that it was written that way to correspond to the retrograde motion of the ages. But the problem is when this would have been written, allegedly, they didn't believe in the precession of the equinoxes as we know it today in the 26,000 year cycle. During that time, they believed what was called the eighth sphere, which is the retrograde would last in like a little over 800 years in one direction, but then it would stop like a pendulum and go the other way around, go back. And it wasn't until enough time after they originally thought that, once it's been over 800 years and they can see that, hey, these signs are not ever going back to where they were. They're just continuing to retrograde around the whole zodiac as far as we can tell, thus causing the sidereal system versus the tropical system.
There are some writers that say that, I've heard from, I think it's Immanuel Velikovsky, said something to the effect of precession wasn't a thing until some type of event occurred that kicked it off. Like he said, like 3,000 years ago. So regardless of the veracity of that, it's an interesting concept that even precession it would be so hard to know, right? Because you'd have to have records that go back very, very far to know if precession ever was different than the 1 degree that we can perceive right now.
Yeah, the 1 degree every 71 years.
Yeah, 1 degree in a lifetime. Yeah, that's what I meant.
exactly. And so the records don't exist, but that is irrelevant. What I'm trying to get to the point of is that when this was written, that wouldn't have been known, the precession of the equinoxes in terms of the 26,000 year cycle, which would have made that passage make sense. So either A, they've again gotten the symbolism wrong and in the wrong order and intentionally fucked it up, or B, the scriptures are a lot newer and this passage wasn't even written till after they knew about that, which would have been, very modern, way too modern to have anything to do with any of the quote unquote historical figures that it claims to have something to do with. So that's just important for people to keep in mind. Also to keep in mind that when we get into Revelation, John's Revelation, that used to be called the Apocalypse. And this is because all of this comes from the Eleusinian mysteries, and the final stage of initiation is called the Great Apocalypse. And it's the unveiling of all the symbolism so that the initiate finally knows what it all means. So,
The great reveal.
basically, yeah. So basically, these royal stars, what makes them significant? Now you can go to the next slide with the four evangelists. What makes this significant is when this system was developed, so it would be 24 degrees off from now, the fixed sign is what follows the cardinal sign. So for this time of year, right, the sun is in Aries, it's actually going into Taurus right now. But when it had just gone into Aries at the equinox, at the vernal equinox, what you saw in the sky at sunset, right after the sun was out of visibility, so it was no longer blotting out the sky, would have been the bright red star in Aldebaran, which is the bull's eye of Taurus. And that would let the farmers know and all the people in nature that it's springtime. All right, so now you can start getting ready to plow the fields and sow your seeds and all that stuff. Likewise,
yeah, so there's a real world application to this as opposed to just being like a bunch of supernatural mysteria and literal history that we need to believe in dogmatically or we are punished.
Exactly. And so what's special about these, and this, like I was saying with Crow, this is what really cements the creation aspect of this world and proves the existence of God beyond any shadow of doubt, is you look at the equinoctial royal stars that would mark spring and autumn. They're both red. You have Aldebaran and Antares, right? And so in the northern and southern part of the zodiac, or the summer and winter fixed signs, being Aquarius and Leo, the royal stars are both white. So you have white and red. And that, to me, is what is so awesome about that, because if you were to connect all of those, you get your cross or your X.
And everyone from the Knights of Malta to the Templars to the Vatican uses that red and white and a cross.
Yep. And so can you go back to that Wheel of Fortune card real quick, just to show people where rotus. So if what you see in this is rota going one way, but you also see tarot. And rota refers to wheel, rotus in Latin. In reverse, rotas is sator, S-A-T-O-R, which pertains to sowing, and that's the root word of Saturn. And so in this like modern day deck, you see rota between the name of Yova. So on the top right, that's the Yud. Right, very top left, that would be Hey. Bottom left, Vav. Bottom right, Hey. Yode Vav Hey, Jehovah, Yova. Or as the Pope would say, Hova. That's why Jay-Z calls himself Hove. And that is what Jove is, Jupiter, you name it. And so this is clearly the zodiac, and it also, in my opinion, highlights the fact that Saturn was an archetype for the winter sun before it was ascribed to a planet, the same way Jupiter was a name for the sun, same way Mercury is. We'll cover all of this. But rota is also the root word wheel of rotate and rotation, which the heavens does. And that's what I wanted to address there. And as you'll see in the top corner, what is that? X, 10. Say 10. So let's move on to
about the 10. Did you say Torah also, as in like a word for law?
Yeah, and Torah, like there's the Torah, the rotation. You can get deeper into that, but if we go into that, it's just going to turn into right, Deus. Yeah, Deus Homo Torah. Yeah, these are all the keys to occult science, but that's another conversation. So let's go into St. Luke.
Okay, so here's the evangelists again, and the correct order is actually from right to left. I misdid that on the slide here in terms of the label there. So what's important?
Yeah, they actually got it right. They got it right, but the problem is we read left to right. So the fact that they put it right to left, it's more like Hebraic rather than English,
Yeah, that has all kinds of connotations. Writing outside or towards yourself in a sense, like if that makes sense, like with the you're writing towards your heart or away from your heart, depending on if you're left to right or right to left and writing right-handed. But yeah, let's move forward because that's a whole can of worms. Here's an incorrect order, but just to show that these symbols are clearly related to these four evangelists, and there they are again. We'll move.
And just so people know what they're looking at is going to be like St. John see the eagle in the top left. St. Luke, you see the bull in the top left. St. Mark, you see the lion, right? The eagle, again, Scorpio, the bull, Taurus, the lion, Leo. And then in St. Matthew, you see the angel in the top left, right? Because that's going to be Aquarius, man. So that's what people, I think, we take it for granted that we already know the symbolism. So when we're looking at it, we know what we're looking at already. And the audience is seeing this maybe for the first time. So they're like, what the hell are these guys talking about?
Yeah,
but that just shows you which royal stars they are.
The good thing is we will have so many images to back this up of each of these evangelists coming up that'll drive the point home pretty well. So the ox is Taurus, right?
Yep, the beast of burden.
Through some of these images while you talk about it, if that sounds good.
Sure. Yeah, and so St. Luke in Luke the Evangelist is Aldebaran, and he's depicted in art as Luke and the bull, and it corresponds to the red star, the bull's eye. Taurus literally means red cross, Taurus, right? That phonetic Rus, like in Italian, it's rosa, red, roja, Russia, all pertains to red. So
I'm going to skip forward and come back to this one and just show more of Luke.
Yeah, of course. So Luke is exclusively a Latin name. It's derived from luce, which would be light, or lucius, the bright one. So in Latin, there's a saying, cum luce salutem, with light, salvation. And that's why where all of this mystery school element of drawing light out of darkness comes from. And that's generally the occult in one saying, with light, salvation, with knowledge, correct behavior. You could make a bunch of different derivatives of the same significance, but that's also where the name Lucifer comes from, because it's derived from luce and fede, lucifere, to bear, to carry, or to ferry the light. And so the symbolism was ascribed to the luminary Venus due to its proximity to the sun, which right now, actually no, it's a good time to see Mercury in the night sky at dusk. I was going to say Venus, but it's not. But interestingly enough, Venus is never beyond 59 degrees away from the sun. So it looks like it brings light into the world as the morning star. It's the brightest star in the sky until the sun rises. And the Greek word that would phonetically be related to this would be lukos, right? Lucas, lukos. The problem is since it's an exclusively Latin-derived name, lukos means wolf, in Greek. So the Latin correspondence of that word would be lupus. And that's why you have the lamb, Aries, laying with the wolf, lupus, at the horizons, because these constellations are on opposite sides of the zodiac from each other. So the reason I bring this name up is it's one of many clues or examples of how young the scriptures are and how they're observably written in Latin first. And the reason I say that is because if you were to look at the Greek name of Jesus, it's spelled iota, eta, sigma, omicron, upsilon, sigma. The problem is upsilon, sigma would be US or YS. In Latin, it's a Latin termination. So right there, that's the key. Iota, eta, sigma, IHS, right? The Jesuit symbol inside the sun. It's the old name for Bacchus, the sun, the god of the grape. And all they did was attach a Latin termination to it. And it's written in Greek to pawn it off as being older than it is. So it's just one more example of how Jesus is the Son. There is nothing historical or literal about the Bible. And to accept that there ever was such a historical figure named Jesus, you're already hexing yourself if you don't understand that that's the Son and that you're dealing with a cult of Ilios, the Sun.
Right on, man. And the other thing about taking it literally, I mean, this is a tangent we might not need to dwell on, but your book explains it very well, is that the entire Vatican crown control system involves everything tying back to a corporation soul, the Pope, who is basically the officer of Christ in a way, like a representative, the vicar, meaning replacement, and anti also means replacement. So there's this corporate office that exists that only exists in their fake legal system because of the mythology and the fabled pedigree of a literal character that now has transferred his corporation, if you will, to the next one in line, each pope in succession. So by a real word magic way, if you actually understand what anti means and how it's the same thing as vicar, then you've got a new antichrist every time you got a new pope. So there's nothing supernatural about it.
It's interesting that you brought that up, the corporation soul, because soul is a Latin word for the sun as well. So
exactly,
it's literally the corporation of the sun, the sun corporation.
Yeah, the crown, corona. What does the sun have?
Yeah. It's pretty intense. It's simple, but it's pretty intense when you see how deep, how obsessive they are when they create all this stuff. But it's because they've had thousands of years to do it. It's not like this is a new thing. So what do we got next?
Okay, so if we want to just bring this up real quick, just to show Debaran, the eye of the bull. That's that star that we showed of the 4 stars at the beginning. Just important.
Yeah, and you see that April 17th, an hour after sunset. So as the sun goes down, that beautiful red star is just glistening right there, just letting you know.
The perfect time of year to start
planting. Get to work.
Yeah.
Get to work. Winter's over. Get your ass out in the field.
So I'm going to skip us ahead here to the last slide on Luke for now. And it's just going to give you a little recap of the important points that we just talked about. And that is, I mean, it's not covering everything you just described. You gave us a lot there, especially about the name Luke, which is very important. It is the same exact root as Lucifer, which is Venus, by the way. So there, I thought I'd throw in the Target logo. There's so much corporate symbolism.
That's exactly what it is. Bullseye.
Yep, and that's also the astrological symbol for the sun, is a circle with a dot.
Go back to those pictures, though. Just like let everyone see those of Luke before we move on to St. Mark, just so everyone can see, like, we're not bullshitting on. This is in the churches.
Bullshit, huh?
Right? Yeah, Baal shit. Bel shit. Yeah, Bel, the confounder, Chaldee, great confounder. That's where Baal comes from, the Lord. And Jesus is Baal. He's the Lord and Savior. He's the king, Moloch, because that's what Moloch is, king. He is Moloch. He is Baal. He's everything. Everyone is so confounded in the symbols, and they don't even know what they're looking at or saying anymore. And there he is. Yeah, look at the bull. He's holding the bull. Very subtle. Yeah. So if you're a religious person, what do you think of when you're in church looking at this stuff? You thinking that this guy was just some sort of like evangelist that hung out with a certain animal all the time? That was his pet animal, his pet bull? No, they don't do anything by accident. Nothing.
Not to mention, I mean, it's a common symbolism theme to put that halo of light around their head, the corona of the sun right behind their head. I mean, pay attention to that. It's behind the bull, it's behind him, and in the picture with the mother and child there, Jesus and Mary, Isis and Horus, you've got the same thing going on behind her head.
Yeah, I think Crow does one of the best jobs in like simplifying that. Is he says for like a lack of a better explanation, just think of all these characters as an aspect of the sun. He's like an actor playing all these different parts during different times of the year. And that's what the symbolism is letting them know, because the sun is the only thing that allows us to measure the year. That's why it's so important. Without it, we wouldn't have that means.
This is amazing. And I'm just going to throw it out there that there's been some really cool developments during this stream where multiple people have subbed to my Patreon channel. And because the Rockfin thing was causing us to have a bad connection, we're going to just do this all right here. This is too important. I'm not trying to like make a buck off of you guys, but I do want your support. And Dylan, his books deserve your support. I mean, you've just got a little glimpse so far, and we're going to keep going and unpack this as long as it takes to get through it all. So that's the plan. Don't worry about
Yeah, and hopefully,
halfway through. The people who came through and just all subbed at the same time, they're paying for this one for you guys. Thank you to those people.
Awesome. That's a really good, a fair thing. If you're getting rewarded for your efforts, why not give what you can? This is like a charitable thing. And it's a great day to do it because happy Baltana, right? It's a Celtic holiday. Ignore the May Day commie trash holiday. They don't get to hijack this. This is an important time of the year because it's the halfway point between the vernal equinox and the summer solstice. So this is one of my favorite times of year. Don't let the commie trash that's ruining this nation and that's ruining the world hijack this. Don't let them have it. Fuck them.
Yeah, my friend Yake from Sweden said that they call it Valborg, and he had a lot to say.
Valpurgisnacht.
Yeah, same thing. So yeah, happy.
Well, that was technically last night.
Oh, I got you. That's why he sent that yesterday. We got a lot of cool things in the Telegram group. We have people from all around the world. I do want to see some new people jump in after the stream.
Yeah, and if at any point you got questions or stuff you want to address, like feel free. I'm not looking at the chat while I do this because I have a very poor attention span. So
sure, yeah,
it's hard for
I'll
me.
Monitor that.
So
there's so many
if
good people in the chat.
I'm happy to answer on anything. You just got to stop me and let me know, and then I'll keep an eye on the chat if you want to allot some time for when everyone can like talk, and then I'm down to address whatever people want to address. But
Yeah.
Next up we have Saint Mark, and so as a Venetian, someone who has family lineage, this is a very important figure to me, which is how I was able to recognize when people like Robert Taylor put him as the winter royal star. And it's not the case because Mark comes from Mark and his lion, and that would be the white star Regulus, the heart of Leo, the lion. So the name Marcus biblically means the shining one. Most modern online resources have attributed it to the name Mars. That may be true, but in terms of how the priest class uses it with the green language and in this symbolism, Marcus means the shining one, and it's representative of Regulus,
That's
shining
the
white
ugliest
star.
lion in the world on the right there.
I love that. That's Christopher Walken right there as the as Mark, Saint Mark. It's like, oh, summer, it's here. Why?
Awesome. Yeah, I didn't mean to cut in though. The white star,
No, that's
like
fine.
that's actually something that I learned in this stream just now I knew they were white and red, but I never made that connection that the ones across the ecliptic from each other were the same color. And yeah, what amazing handiwork of an intelligent creation, right?
It's beautiful. And look at that wonderful, that color is called flammium. and it's, you know, representative. If it comes from the, it really means, like in the marriage ceremonies in Rome, they wear that because it goes all the way back to when the priests of Jupiter got married. They would not be allowed to divorce, so it's like a symbol of fidelity. You know, you're never getting divorced. Anyways, going back to Marcus, I should say. Again, this is another one of those exclusively Latin names. And I know it sounds like I'm being an asshole and harping on this, but you have to do that with people, because if you give them an inch, they constantly make excuses for why they can keep reifying their beliefs and engaging in logical fallacy. Marcus is a Latin name. The Greek Markos, going back to what we were saying, Jesus versus Jesus, right? Bacchus versus Bacchus, Dionysus versus Dionysios. The OS is a Greek termination. The US is a Latin termination. That's how you can know they're perverting it and writing it in older languages to make it look older. But Marcos is derived from a Latin-based name. Anyways, moving on. Marcus is the right-hand man of St. Peter, who's Aquarius, and this is due to the special relationship that Leo and Aquarius have with each other, being adversaries, and both of these signs pertain to the royal stars in the fixed signs that mark the seasons. In terms of the Four Evangelists, the white star near Aquarius would be disguised as St. Matthew. Now, I'm ready for some Venetian pictures if you got them.
Yeah, let's just show real quick the constellation again, just so we can see the Regulus star that we're talking about. And yeah, I mean, why? I don't think we need to go deeper on this. Just let people know that it's all in the stars, and this is when you know that you're in the middle of summer is when this one is coming up, right? Right after sunset.
No, when you know, well, no, the star would be when the sun's in them and blotting it out. That's when you know you're in the middle of summer.
Okay.
But going into June 21st, which we're on our way towards, once the sun is in Cancer, that's where it is below the horizon. So after it's set, and this is the descendant portion of the sky, so we're looking west, the sun has just gone beyond our perspective. So now it leaves Regulus right there, bright at dusk.
Okay,
and that's how you know that summer has begun. That's why that's why these stars are so important, is they actually, when you can see them in the dusk sky like that, that's letting you know without a calendar, hey, summer is here now.
So awesome. Like, this is the language of God. I mean, it's right there in our face. Reality is our salvation. That's what I said in the chat, because
it's the original matrix. It's the original womb of creation, nature. And that's why they give us Hollywood stars instead of the real stars, because they're all about giving us fake fiction illusions, so that we literally cut ourselves off from God, being obsessed with all this fake shit.
Yeah, so many levels of that. So many layers deep. A lot of people are. A dream within a dream. Okay, so St. Mark's Square, we're showing some.
Yeah, in Italian this would be Piazza San Marco, right? And this is Venice. And that's why the Venetian lion, the Lion of Judah, is our symbol. And you'll see there, this is the Basilica of St. Mark. Look at that. You think they would do that to honor the winter sun? Not that magnificent. It's all about regal. Regis.
Yeah, that's just really
Regulus. The king. And
this is the backside from the water?
Yeah. No, that's the front. That's still the front.
Okay.
Or yeah, it's not that's just San Marco, Piazza San Marco.
Okay, here we go.
And Venice is the sea people, right? Is anybody having trouble with the phonetic correspondence between Venice and Venus?
Or
and Venus comes from Aphrodite.
The entire matrix is about conning you with conveniences. Convenuses.
It's water, because Venus comes from Aphrodite, which means foam sprung, right? Rhode, the wife of Helios, the sun. The sun is Helios, his wife Rhode, the sea. Rhodos, roses. Aphrodite. That's why you have Rhodian sea law, which gave way to maritime admiralty law, because from Rhode it became Mary, which comes from mare. So the Virgin Mary is mare, the sea in Latin. Virgo Marina, the Virgin of the Sea. Ave Maria Stella, Ave Maria. Hail Mary, star of the sea. Venus. Isis is the moon. Venus is her star, but they're ultimately all aspects of the same sacred feminine consciousness. And Virgo rules winter. Her constellation, when you look at where it begins, the star of the east in her elbow, Vindamiatrix, the great harvester, pops over the horizon to the ascendant the day Christ is born at midnight on December 25th. And by the time the sun is rising, or the sun is born on the 25th, Virgo is at the midheaven, the Virgin Mary. And if you look at where the sun rises and sets, especially in a place like Italy, you see the sun rising on the ocean or walking on water. You see it setting on the ocean. As it gets close, what happens to the water? It gets red from the brightness of the sun. That beautiful sunset color is parting the Red Sea. See what they're doing? That's why all these people are all fishermen. The sun is always going down and looks like it's fishing. That's why the Venus bears the light, because it ferries the light as the sun rises and sets over the ocean.
Reflects the light, yeah. And that's why we have maritime law that a lot of people in the chat are probably very familiar with as a concept, commercial code.
Yep, and it also pertains to Mars, because Mars is also the only, if you look at like Ptolemy's dignities in this essential chart of dignities or whatever, Mars is happy day or night in any of the water signs, whereas some planets, every other planet has, if depending on whether it's night or day in a certain sign, it'll be malefic or have like bad aspects. Mars is always happy over oceans. And that's why in Spanish, the sea is el mar, and el is masculine. So even though it comes from mare, right? The plural of the word sea is Maria, that means seas. And the adjective pertaining to the sea would be Marina. That's why you have people named Marina Abramovic, Lucifer, the sea, Venus, and then her last name, Abram, father of the Most High. Excuse me? You don't see what they're doing here?
Yeah, she's a creepy one.
I see what they're doing here. You motherfuckers can't get anything past me.
Yeah, we're with you, man. I mean, it's all clear as soon as you have the they live glasses on. Stop taking things.
Well, that's why they don't like people like me, because I have the demon blood. So this comes to me like effortlessly. I just see it.
Yeah, well, it's also an IQ thing, and your health has a lot to do with your ability to perceive patterns too. So there's a lot of factors. We'll
get into that.
People can do this without the demon blood, or maybe we all got a little bit. Well, okay, here's some lions, man. There's some fun divergences there. And Beth just mentioned her last name, Martens. Mar.
Yep.
That's great.
House of Martins. Yeah.
And she also she asked if you subscribe to the Bible as the legal contract we're in. I'm guessing she says not like, do you subscribe to the Bible as your law, more so that do you see that the system is built as the Bible being common law, I think might be the nature of that question.
Yeah, that's why in my books I exclusively use the King James Bible. It's not because I like the King James Bible. It's because that is the book that all the laws are based on, that version, because the king is responsible for knowing, right? In knowing, he becomes king. That's where the word king comes from. It's abbreviation of knowing, K-I-N-G. So a king must know things, and in knowing things, that's how he's the one who sets the law, right? And that's why he has his circuit judges that go around a circuit, back then because everything was on like horse-drawn buggies and shit. But so yeah, so I look at the Bible for that. That's why the only reason I use the King James Bible, because there's plenty of instances where it's fucked up and I don't like it. But in terms of the legal system and how it ties into what I call the blackest of all magic, which is the legal system that you're referring to, Beth, that's exactly why I use the King James Bible, because James is the name of the sun. And if you were to take the radicals that make up that name, going all the way back to the priests of Amun in Kem, which we call Egypt, you would have I, which is the one, Am, the heat, and S, the fire. Is literally the living God, Yova, whatever. That's the sun, the great architect. Call him Jupiter, Amun. You can call him Zeus, Amun, Zupater, Zeus the Father. He's got a million names. That's why he's referred to as the daemon of many names.
That's right, and couldn't be more clear in the book as you lay it out. It is all pattern recognition, like Beth said, and she's got a 1611 King James, so she's in good shape. But I'm going to pull up the lines one more time in case you had any comments about that. We looked at this for a moment. I mean, these statues are crazy.
And king is Moloch. So let's not, delude
right.
ourselves. Moloch is the sun as well. Moloch,
Right.
James. It's right there. And
what
that's
building is
St. Mark's. That's the Basilica. Look at that
Up
golden
close.
lion. It's crazy, right? Look at it. And
Yeah.
you see the stars in the background. Like, how magnificent, you know?
The Regulus right there, the king of all those stars. Really cool. Man, it's some amazing structure. I wouldn't put it past them that these creeps that are in control right now never built a thing here and they just moved in on it. But
Well, yeah, that's exactly what you see. You see, you basically see the knowledge getting lost around the time of the Renaissance, when the Vatican and the Church really got most of its power. Ironically, it's one of the unintended consequences of what happened with Cesare Borgia. And as you know, my mom thinks I'm Cesare reincarnated because I'm a spitting image of him. And one of our family's names literally means from Cesare or of Cesare. So I think it's one of those things
coming back
that,
to repay your karma.
yeah, I kind of have a feeling, well, I think, who knows? It could just be, it could just be stuff that's encoded in our DNA. But culturally and genetically, I'm connected to this stuff. So it comes easy to me. And ironically, that's where the church became really powerful, because before that, what you had in Italy was like the leftovers of the Roman Empire. So you have all these like real powerful families like the Colonnas and all that stuff. Well, they got their power because they were like major generals of the Roman army conquering the known world. And then as all this stuff started coming apart, well, nobody gave a shit about the church. You had the military might. So you had all these families, the barons of Italy, and that's one of the reasons why Italy has never been one people. And had some ill fate not happen to Cesare Borgia with his father dying, then he got sick, and then the pope that replaced him was a family friend, but then within 30 days that pope was dead, and then comes Julius II, takes away everything that Cesare had conquered, throws him in jail, takes it all back for the papacy, and then what does he do? He puts the Medicis back in power. And then they exile fucking Machiavelli, who is like one of the greatest Florentine patriots. So like you really look at the people that are talked about ill in historical texts, they're usually the good guys, right? Everyone talks about Machiavelli like he's a bad guy, but he's not. He actually wrote how to succeed in this kind of game of empires, in this game of thrones, if you will. And now the system you're in now, where all this shit's lost, well, who's coming to power, back into power around the time all this is happening? Oh, that would be the Medicis, where you get medicine from. Yeah, how's that modern medicine working out for you? You think that's a good thing? No. It's conversos. That's what the Medici are. They're not Italians. They ain't us.
So one thing, what all you just said was mind-blowing and great off-script stuff for everyone's deeper context and how wide this web is. But The reason I put this slide together this way is because I've done a lot of content lately, and I'm personally very interested in Gnosticism as just another like big conceptual hex that gets people lost in mysteria, which is other people's ideas about other people's ideas, and you're so far from reality and nature, it's ridiculous. And so
I would agree with you, actually.
since Neoplatonism, and even since Plato, I mean, Plato was, his writings are super Gnostic. Some things good, some things like way out there, unnecessary, supernaturalism and all that. Anyway, that's like a whole nother topic that I've covered in other shows, but I wanted to point out that here, the strength card, if you're looking at this from like a hermetic, like the pure sacred sciences way, then this is Leo, right? But what's been done through just one of many different like sort of controlled opposition type religious movements that get inserted in and seeded into history throughout time by the same inverse brethren or these priesthoods. I think that's kind of, I mean, I can't prove it currently, but I think that might be where the whole Gnostic thing came from, is trying to throw people off the scent of what this means. Because what we have here in the Gnostic context, they would tell you it's the demiurge, Yaldabaoth as the lion, and Sophia, the goddess of wisdom,
and so what sign is right after Leo?
Exactly. Virgo. And that's all you really need to know.
So that's what you're looking at, the sun
Exactly.
passing through Leo into Virgo muddy, So this is, again, this is when you typically see the lion symbolism with the goddess, the half-breed, that like kind of like, you usually see like a lion, like almost like a sphinx, like it's a half-assed sphinx. That's generally what it's symbolizing. And then right above her head, you have the infinity sign, which is also the analemma.
Yeah, so we're gonna bring that in.
We'll get to that
slide too. Yeah, so awesome.
Which is good on you for bringing that, because I wouldn't have thought of that. I wouldn't have noticed. It's not. I mean, I notice it when I look at it, but I don't ever really refer to the tarot so much, especially because it's so mixed up.
Yeah, I've done a lot of tarot work, and the main thing that I've had to do is try to delineate between the original Hermetic symbolism and what's been basically inserted to try to throw people into this whole Gnosticism confusion.
Well, one of the reasons like my work stands apart from like my contemporaries is because I generally don't read anything after like the 1850s. It's a rare case. Like if it comes at like a high recommendation, just because I notice it gets, the new age bullshit starts like before our grandparents are born. I mean, it gets really, like you said, that Gnostic, and there's this other like delusion that somehow the Roman Empire, which conquered everything, somehow couldn't conquer Christianity. That this like small sect of devout religious people were just so powerful that Rome finally gave in and converted to it. No. Through language and symbolism, it's observable that it's all coming from Egypt. Prior to that, Ethiopia, which is just another religious name for India. And prior to that, actual India, the Brahmins. That's why you have Abrahamic tradition. Abram is just Brahma, and they moved the A from the back to the front.
And what do you know? It's kind of like Pig Latin or whatever.
Yeah, and people think the Hebrew translation, Abram, right? Father, Abba, Ram, the Most High. Well, where do you think Ram comes from? That would be India, Sanskrit, Rama. Yeah. So if you're European and you're espousing this stuff, it's a mark of your slavery, because you have been hexed by an Oriental cult that has come here for thousands of years, and they've taken over Europe, and they're now in that phase where they're going to cull you like worse than you've ever been culled historically. Because if you look at Europeans, we'll fight amongst each other, but you can't conquer us. Like you and I could be fighting, and then someone from out of town could come and try to butt into our business while we're in fighting, and then you and I would instantly join sides to whoop that person's ass, because that's how Europeans are. We fight amongst ourselves, but when it comes to actual civilization, we work very well together, and we create culture and strength in community. And you can't conquer a people that does that very well. Like look at parts of India. There's towns in India of 30,000 people without working plumbing, shitting in the fucking beach, doing all this shit. You ever seen that in a European nation? No.
Yeah,
You
the
saw a
what you just
brief
said
you
about
saw a brief period after the Roman civilization collapsed and they lost the technology, like the aquifers and stuff. So you see a brief period of not having good sanitation, but eventually we figured it out again and got even better. And now vaccines get all the credit for plumbing and sanitation when it's not the case.
couldn't be farther from the truth. Craziest thing ever. But you guys, since you're getting like a total lesson from Dylan, like way better than a university course right here, we're going to recap again on these four evangelists just to hammer it home. So screenshot this slide, maybe the ones that have these recaps. It could be really helpful reference for you. But marking the lion, mark the shining one, the white star, Regulus, the heart of Leo. That's what you need to get. That's summer. And we can move forward from here. This is so good. And,
Nice. Now we'll go to St. John.
yeah, I'll just move through some slides while you talk about it.
And so the thing to look for when you know which one you're looking at is you'll see him depicted with the eagle, which, just as a recap, in case somebody wasn't here, the eagle is the higher-minded symbol of Scorpio. And in alchemy, the white eagle represents salt, which is correlated to salvation, because the root word of that, salvation, is salt, sal, S-A-L in Latin. That's why water is salt. Water, the ocean, Maria, Mare, Mary, Venus, Aphrodite, Rhode, these are the great solvents. Life comes from salt water. It's miraculous. It heals cuts, it does everything. And it's the greatest solvent, the soul vent. And so, astrologically speaking, see how he's in those red robes? Corresponds to the red star Antares, which means against Aries, or Ares, because Scorpio is the adversary of Aries, which is ruled by Mars. And that's the Roman version of Aries. And so Aries is the heart of the constellation Scorpio. Now, I sent you a photo of another, look at how beautiful that is. I sent you another photo of, I think it was like the constellation Aries, and you'll notice how Sagittarius is aiming the bow right at him, at the heart of Antares.
Yeah, we've got the...
Yeah, so this is what people see in right before, like you'll know that autumn is here. That's what you'll see in the dusk sky. You see that? Again, it's that red star of Scorpio, and you're like, yep, it's time to start the harvest.
Yeah, sometimes
Why then should
and the hunting
there
season
it is.
too
There
in
it
some
is.
places, which is part of the symbolism here.
And so as you see, the Latin word saggio literally means I perceive with my intellect. And so that's the higher mind, the God mind, conquering the lower nature and aiming those arrows of thought, of higher thought, at the heart of the scorpion, Antares. Because literally, the lower sexual nature is against the higher minded nature, which would be Aries, Aries, the ram, the Rama, the Most High, the seed of God, the seed of Brahm, cerebellum, seed, sere, Brahm, Brahma, Abram, ram. That's why Aries in Latin means ram.
So awesome. And I think people have to be seeing how this all ties together now in a big way. And we can move faster through this one because we do have so much more to go. I'm fine with it. Or if you have more thoughts to share.
Nope, I'm ready for some, I'm ready for St. Matthew.
Okay, so here's your recap, guys. It's Antares, the heart of Scorpio. And it's called such because it's the anti-Aries. It's against or juxtaposed across the ecliptic from Aries. Just like the equinoxes. I mean, it's literally the equinoxes, I should say. So this is St. John, Scorpio. Scorpio is also the eagle. The reason it has this dual symbolism, and even why Ophiuchus is also part of this, it is the same symbolism there of the conquering of the lower mind, or the higher and lower mind conceptually, not to the point where the lower part of ourself is considered base or evil. It's a metaphor for being able to put things in their proper order, right? So it's not that the body or the scorpion or the serpent is an evil part of ourself. That's part of the way that Gnostic ideas have corrupted and infiltrated into all the Abrahamic religions, to say your body is dirty or it's a prison. I mean, hell, they even
Literally
have
how we give life and multiply, and like the very mechanism that enables us to survive and thrive with real wealth, which would be children. Yeah, nothing evil about it. It's like everything. Anything imbalanced is going to be imbalanced. You don't need to get all philosophical about it, you know?
Sure, and the serpent, Ophiuchus, is on the earth and the eagle flies in the air. So that's exactly the generative principle. Requires two polarities that are separated so that a divine spark can jump the gap. It's just electricity and magnetism, and it's symbolism for that. Joining heaven and earth, that's what the human being does when they create and bring life into the world. It is you're sparking the divine into the vessel. Calling in
the eagle of Jove,
reinforcements.
Aquila.
Aquila is the name of the eagle, right?
The eagle of Jove. Yeah, it's another constellation in that area. And so, like, if you were to look at this time of year, it's also the time John the Baptist is best for viewing, which would be Aquarius, because that's, you see the signs at night the best in the opposite times of year from when the sun's in them. So as the sun is going through autumn, right? Summertime is the best time you see Aquarius, because when the sun is in Aquarius, it blots it out in wintertime, right? So summertime, late summer, middle summer, that's when you always see the signs opposite of the time of the year the sun's in them. Because when the sun's in them, they're in the day sky and they're blotted out.
Yeah, and that's also what the adversary means, the Satan, in an etymological sense, adversary being just the opposite of the ecliptic. But okay, we got the fourth evangelist, and once we get through this, then we're going to roll through all kinds of things that correspond to it that will drive things home.
Yeah, so Saint Matthew is depicted with Matthew and his angel, and he corresponds to the pale white star Fomalhaut, which is in the fish's mouth in the constellation Piscis Austrinus. It's like the southern fish, right? And that's, if you look at the constellation Aquarius, that's who he's pouring his urn into. And so that's why it's connected to Aquarius, even though it's not technically in Aquarius's constellation. And so this is why you'll see the age of man, the angel, the age of Aquarius. It's humanoid.
Angels are angles too. Another way to play
Yes.
with that word.
Aspects
Angles
of the sun.
light, degrees on the ecliptic.
Gorgeous symbolism. You know, think about the time that people had to spend creating this work back then.
Yeah, I mean, just the art alone shows you the higher mind aspect that humanity could access, because there are artists that are this good today, but what is acceptable in terms of art now, I mean, I create a lot of stuff that's just like quick, program-based, template-based, you know, like there was thought in every brush stroke, and it had deep meaning to their soul, their son, their SOL. So
And you'll see he looks a little bit older, and that's the time of year where the sun is like, it's died, you know, it's in winter. So it's an old man winter.
And there's Aquarius right next to the fish right there.
Mm-hmm. Fomalhaut. So with this art isn't really good. It's what I could find peripherally. You know, I'm not going to spend all this time, like, you know, I don't have the programs to make this stuff. So but it's the fish's mouth.
The recap slide. There we go. There's your
And so
Cliff Notes screenshot slide.
one side note is that the etymology from Matthew would go back to Egypt, be ma'at, right? Mat, and thoth, or thut. And when you read how like thoth was spelled back then, it was Theuth. So that's where it comes from. Matthew, Matthew.
Hey, and then can't we connect Thoth right into Mercury too?
Yep. And Hermes Trismegistus, thrice
Character
great.
different masks.
Yep. Again, and this is why what they do is like they'll take names that were aspects of the sun and then ascribe them to planets. And now that's confounding everything. And you can blame the Greeks for doing that circa the 2nd century BC. But I'm at the point where I just look at the Egyptian empire. What we would call the Egyptian empire is basically the Greek empire. I mean, it's the same thing. And then before, that comes from the Indian empire, the Brahmanics, the Brahmins.
That's right. Michael Tsarion concurs too in his research that this came from the East, not the other way around, not west to east, but east to west. And then there's a lot of evidence even with like Scotland is named for Scotia, who was like the daughter of Akhenaten, who was supposedly the first monotheist that made everything about who? Who did he make it all about? The sun.
The chat has to know by now.
Yeah, it's all about the sun.
Well, interestingly enough, what's today? Baltana, right? Or what we say Beltane. But who is Bel? That's Chaldee, Persia, the great confounder. That's where Baal comes from, the daemon of many names. So the sun. So even these like quote unquote pagan holidays and all that shit, people are like, oh, the church is stealing them from us. No, it ain't. And the language is observable to anybody who has functioning brain cells. There's nothing original about what you guys are espousing. And this goes all the way up into the Nordic lands with the runes and Odin, right? So Woden is Mercury. And as we're going to prove, Mercury is another sun archetype that's been ascribed to a planet.
Yeah, my friend Yake in the Telegram was telling me about how he had done some investigating into the runes and trying to find like the origin and veracity and legitimacy of what people use as like runic systems. And basically he said there was no bottom to get to. It seems like it's something that was sort of fraudulently introduced as a...
Do you want my opinion on it?
Yeah.
So one of my families, the Venetian one, that comes from this cult. And so they have what are called the heads of the family. They call them dons. You have to be 100% pure blood. I would have been a don if one of my grandfather didn't get us out of the mafia. But then my dad's mom, my dad is Roman, ironically. His first name is Remus. My grandfather's name is Romulus. So that side of my family is Roman. But my dad's mom is French and American Indian. And so I wouldn't have been allowed to be a don, even though I would have been like next in line. But had my family not gotten out of that system, my mom probably would have never been allowed to procreate with my dad. You know what I'm saying? So interesting about that is the last don in that family had platinum blonde hair and icy blue eyes and a handlebar mustache. And when I look at the Venetians, they're the Phoenicians, the sea people, right? You see the same language. If you look at ancient Phoenician, and most of the records they have of it are coming from Italy. That part of Italy is like at the border of Austria and Slovenia. So you can see how they're like Germanic. What I think happened is the Phoenicians went up to the Norse, those lands, and they gave them that system of the runes from the Phoenician alphabet, while simultaneously they're giving the Hebrew alphabet to the people of Mesopotamia. Or that's like how they're developing, but they're both coming from Phoenician.
Yeah, that's a perfect example of like the real life Tower of Babel. Just go amongst them and confuse their languages. And we have coming up, man, all that stuff was really interesting. So I don't want to like stop that if you had more, but we can go into
No, let's keep it going.
the riddle of the Sphinx. You know, this isn't just Greek mythology, the Sphinx, or not just a weird thing in Egypt.
Well, if you recall, oh, go ahead.
You go ahead and then I'll read the verse again.
What I was gonna say is, if anybody recalls, like, high school, and they've read Oedipus Rex, he became king by solving the riddle of the Sphinx. That's what we're going to show you. And even the place he did that is called Thebes, right? And the Hebrew name for Thebes is No Amun. It's got Amun right there, and No is it's an anagram. Literally, it's On. As Plato once wrote, "Tell me of the god On, who was, is, and shall be." On is the city of the sun, Heliopolis. And that's where the nice, beautiful sundial, also known as an obelisk, comes from. Comes from literal Heliopolis, the city of the sun. And they brought that to friggin' Vatican City, St. Peter's Square.
Yeah, here it is.
Right?
Yeah, that was what it was
Yep.
after the Sphinx, but we can just back up to the Sphinx. There it is. Where did they get the obelisk here?
And Peter is the rock, the sacred rock from Mithraism, which was introduced to Rome, but it came from Persia.
I thought it was Jupiter. Jupiter?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, but
I know,
Peter,
I'm just joking.
Pater in Greek is father. That's what they were called, the priests of Apollo, the pateres, the fathers. That's why the priests in the Catholic Church are called father. It's a spiritual father. It's not a literal father.
And then now, even in Protestant churches, you have the pastor. Astor is a word for star. Pastor, minister.
Yeah, Astor. It's a Greek word for star.
Moon star, minister.
And so even Thebes' hieroglyphic was a quarter circle connecting to a right angle. And this represented the manger for the bulls as seen on shore, but from a boat. And this symbolism has been lost as well, probably due to the sculptors, like the symbolism that we're going to cover in terms of the Sphinx. I think it gets lost for the same reason, like, it could be an honest mistake. It could be someone who's uninitiated making this stuff at the request of somebody who is initiated. You know what I mean? So that person gives them the idea and then they execute it, but they do things slightly incorrect. And it's not like you can just like redo it. So you
Have
really
you guys
see
figured
this.
out what the riddle of the Sphinx is yet? How do you solvent, and become king?
If you want, we can wait if anybody's got the riddle of the Sphinx, if they know it.
I think we've made it clear what we're looking at. I also kind of
So
put
if
the
you-
answer to a degree in the slide.
Yep. And so the real importance for this is to show people and to demonstrate that Jesus, the Son, is the literal diegesis, which is the story or narrative of Egypt taken to Rome. Now, we've done this with symbolism. We've done this with literal artifacts, right? Going back to the obelisk in St. Peter's Square, the foundation of the church, Peter, Janus, January. And so that obelisk represents the sun's rays or pieces, of Osiris, the fragments, if you will, the rays of Ra, Re, the noontime sun, if you will.
I wish I had a slide on this, but if you look at it from above, it's a giant sundial, and it points you to what time of year you're at certain points.
Yep. And the sun in all these mythological stories, that character is always torn into pieces because it literally gives itself to us all year round. And that light is a fragment of its source. And if you want, if you're ready, we can go to Hermopolis. Or if there's other slides, let's look at these other slides and address them.
No, let's go into Hermopolis right here.
Right, so Hermopolis. And so if you look at the root of this word in ancient Egyptian, it's shmun, right? And that's why Hebrew, the name for eight, the word for eight is shmone, right? Because Heliopolis, not Heliopolis, Hermopolis, Hermes is known as Lord 8. And the reason this is significant, you ready for the next slide? Because we're going to go into Yova, the name of God. So if you were to look at the name Yova, right, and so Hebrew goes from right to left, so you have, again, going back to, remember the Wheel of Fortune card in the very beginning? Rota, Rotas, Torah. You had the Yod, He, Vav, He that we addressed. So you have the Yod, which is numerologically 10, the He, which is 5, the Va, 6, and then the second He. So you have 26 if you add them all together, which reduces to 8. So this is where Gematria and stuff like that came into value. There's no system of like, oh, because these numbers correspond to my names, that means my life is going to unfold this way. Or, you know, because my birth chart is this way, the stars were here when I was born, it means all this bad shit or good shit is going to happen to me in life. No. You need to look at them more like numbers are systems of identifying another layer of language or symbolism when actual pictures and words fail. And so that's the beauty of it. And so how you can tie Hermes, which I've covered on Crow's Show, that it comes from 2 words that literally means drawing out of darkness. Hermes is Mercury. I don't think anybody would disagree with that. Hermes is the Greek version.
Let's real quick point out the image on the right too. I kind of jumped past that.
Enigma.
That's right. Also, they call the infinity symbol a lemniscate as well. That's another word for it. But when it's the sun in the sky, it has a specific name.
Well, basically what that comes from is like if you were to measure the sun at the same time every day for a year and take a picture of it and then superimpose that, that's what you get.
There it is, Lord 8.
Lord 8, and that's all related to the sun, Yova, the name of God. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God. It was Yova, because that's what Pythagoras created the tetractys from, or the tetrad, T-E-T-R-A-D, and that is a triangle of 10 points.
Yep, and let's just see how original this is.
In that triangle,
oh, go ahead.
We didn't prepare for this, but in that triangle, if you look up the tetrad, you will see is a hexagram. And from that hexagram comes all the major symbols. You have the 3D representation of the cube in the hexagram, in the hexagon. And in the hexagram, you have the 6-pointed star, which would be Solomon's seal, or what they erroneously called the Star of David. Again, it's more solar symbolism. And then if you fold up the cross that Jesus is on, another symbol of the sun, you get a cube. So that is the key to these Abrahamic traditions. And it all comes from Kronos, Keren.
And it comes from the East, as you said. I want to point out that that Taoism, this is my I Ching deck of cards. There's 64 8x8 I Ching hexagrams. And the pure ideas of Taoist thought are very similar to Hermeticism, which is what was the positive application of how this was practiced in Egypt, which did not originate there before it was completely, seemingly infiltrated or overthrown. Or maybe it's always been, maybe, who knows exactly the historical story, but like, the point is, it ties back to things that you wouldn't expect, like the 8x8 hexagrams of the I Ching. It's
also on your shirt.
yeah, perfect. There it is.
I didn't even realize that. And so here's my thing with this, though. If you can fit the symbolism perfectly into a hexagram, right, which would be the magic of 6, gram, magic, hex, 6, is your symbolism in your religion not a hex? So how are you going to dispel hexes while simultaneously marking yourself with them? And that's just food for thought. Yeah, I'm not like insulting you. I'm not insulting anybody who it's just something to consider. If you're serious about dispelling hexes, why then would you be espousing ideologies with symbolism containing the hex that are, basically broadcasting the hex? It's just something to think about.
Yeah, that's really good divergence. And just to show more connections here between Egypt and what we get with Hermes and Mercury's. Hermes and Anubis are actually the same guy. And I really just picked a few images here. Dylan sent me a lot, but by the time I got to this point in the slideshow, it's already bulky and like we want to cover a lot. So just start looking up the word Hermanubis and see what you find. Hopefully I spelled that right, but that is
Yeah, you did.
an actual name of a deity that was basically both of these two things combined.
Real quick, can you go back to a Sphinx? Because I don't think we beat people over the head with it. And I just want to make sure
Give me a second.
I cover that, because I didn't beat people over the head with it. But the reason I wanted to return to it is because, in my opinion, it's a key for how young the symbolism coming out of Egypt is. And this is why I don't subscribe to Egypt being as old as they tell us. So generally, when a Sphinx is done well, it'll have the body of a bull, which corresponds to Taurus. It'll have the paws of the lion, which corresponds to Leo. And it'll have the wings of the eagle, which corresponds to Scorpio. And then it'll have the head of a man, which corresponds to Aquarius. So right there, those are the fixed 4 signs in the Zodiac that mark the middle of each season. However, when you look at seasons historically, it's only been a modern phenomena where autumn is considered its own season. It used to be considered part of summer. And so like this is a great time to segue into the Brahmins. And if you have that that symbolism of like Shiva, Brahm, and Vishnu, if you're ready to go into that, we can go into that, or we can stay on Hermes a little bit more. But I just wanted to really drive that symbolism home. I'll say it one more time. The body of the bull, the paws of the lion, the wings of the eagle, and the head of man. Right there is corresponding all that Christian symbolism coming from Egypt. It's not that old.
I've got to take a quick break and be right back, but I want to bring up Hermes and Hermanubis because maybe you could tell them a little bit more about the etymological stuff behind Anubis, like cannabis comes to mind. But I'll be right back. It'll just take me a second, so you just hold it down for me.
Sure. Well, so what you look at with Hermes is and mes. It refers to drawing out of darkness. Anubis, the root word for Anubis, and this goes back to the priests of Anu, which are the chief observers. These are the chief astronomers of their day. And Anu is the year. It's where the Latin word annus comes from, right? Anno Domini, the year of our Lord. So annus is where we get things like annual. And so Anubis would be the conductor of souls. Hermes and Mercury, the messenger of the gods. Jesus, the fisher, or the fisher of men, the good shepherd. And so these are all solar archetypes, because if you look at it, the flock is the stars in the solar system, and the good shepherd, the good serpent, is the sun. So
am I back
I'm
with
going to
good
look
timing?
at the awesome. Yeah, I just finished. You saved me right at, I was about to go into like dead space for like 10 minutes and like
Totally killed the stream, bro.
Yeah. No. So as you're looking at Shiva right now, so going back to the old year, it was divided into 3 seasons. So just to kind of show people, Shiva was winter. And so this is the time of year. This is why Shiva corresponds to Saturn, and how I make the case that Saturn was the winter sun, right? The destroyer, because that time of year, at least north of the equator, where all this stuff started, that time of year is what kills everything, winter. And then if you're ready, we can go to Brahm. The next slide, if you have it.
Oh, I'll have to skip forward ahead. It's a little out of order there. So
that's
moment,
okay.
I'll
We can go back
find
to Janua. Yanua, the year.
Because next
the
we have a
North.
big segment about the four horsemen. So let's just I'll grab those are kind of near the end, but yeah, is this maybe one that you
Not a
wanted
problem.
to look at right here?
Yeah, so basically, so there you go, it's the Trinity, right? And as you see, these are like old memes I made back in the day when I was like marketing my books. Again, you can see it all goes back to brightness and shining and Deva, God, right? Trimuti, Trinity. Trimuti, Trinity. You hear the phonetic correspondence? I'm speaking Sanskrit. Eko Deva Trimuti. One God, three forms. And this corresponds to the three seasons. So you have Shiva as winter, Brahma as spring, and Vishnu as summer. And then when they made their way to Ethiopia, which is, like I said, is just another religious name for India, and then Egypt, those systems were adopted. So then the Egyptians used Shait as winter, which is why Capricorn is also the gate of deluge. They used Piroit as spring, and that would be the season of emergence. And then you had Shomu as summer in the harvest. Now, even though it was three seasons, there was also that goddess archetype, the Ranuit, which was a symbol for Virgo, and that's the goddess of nourishment in the harvest. But she's technically, like I said, part of summer. And so if you ever make it to book 3 of my series, you'll see that Egypt borrowed their symbolism from Ethiopia. And that's why you have Ethiopian and the Hebrew language sharing 500 root words, because both of those languages come from the sacred or holy glyphs, the hieroglyphs, right? Whereas the Coptic comes from the vulgar tongue in Egypt, or the agricultural class, if you will, the non-creative class. And the reason I mention that is because some people say the Coptics were the first Christians, and that, you know, that language, it would be from the profane class, and profane would be the class that's not initiated. The literal word of profane comes from the Latin profanus, which means outside the temple. Pro, before, fanum, temple. And so as Egypt collapsed, or whatever happened down there, to me it's just the Greek Empire, right? Because the place that we call Greece now is not, it was not called Greece until recent times, right? But
It's
like
called Hell. They were the Hellenes, which ties into the Bach Saga, where they
Helios.
say everything comes from Hell, or what they think is Helsinki. And then to me, that ties into this whole idea of Tartaria, because that's Tartarus, which is hell, or the underworld. I just see a bunch of name swaps.
Yeah, it's winter sun symbolism. And so that's why you have like the angel of the abyss. His name is Abaddon, right? Abba, father, Don, the Lord. We covered that, the Italian families, Dons, the Phoenicians, Don's Lord, Adon. That's where Adonai in Hebrew, the God, the Lords, my Lords, comes from. That's where Adonis in Greek, the sun, comes from. It all pertains to that winter sun symbolism, and that ties us right into, like, if you look at the archetypes, Hades, that would be winter, right? Then Poseidon would be spring, and Zeus would be summer. I know you have sides for them, but if you don't know where those guys are, we can just keep going.
I've got them, but I don't actually think I grabbed a Pluto. No, wait, there's one Pluto in here. Okay, this is a fun pop quiz, everybody. Can you tell who's who of these gods without a label? Because I bet that most of you will not get it all 3 right.
The lightning bolt is a key for Zeus or Jupiter.
But that trident just keeps showing up. Trident, tri-face, what is it?
Trinity, 3 seasons, 3. It's always going to be this the three form, you know, the triune nature of God, if you will. And so it's pretty much impossible. It's pretty much impossible to separate Pluto and Hades art and symbolism, because some people call it Pluto, some people call it Hades, right? But it's the winter, and Poseidon would be spring, Zeus would be summer, and that would correspond to like in the Hebraic tradition, you would have Ham as winter, Noah's 3 sons, right? That would be winter. Ham means the blackness, the burnt, and it corresponds to the dark darkness taken over at that time of year. Japheth, which would be spring, his name means the growth. And then Shem would be summer, and his name pertains to like the harvest or prosperity. And so in Rome, you'd have Pluto as winter, then you have Neptune as spring, and then Jupiter as summer. And so, like we said, this all corresponds to the Trinity. And it also, again, this is serious stuff because we're in the worst form of slavery as Europeans because we think we're free. And our minds are totally ensconced in nonsense. We don't understand the mythology the way it's supposed to be understood.
This wasn't in my slides, but I just
history.
grabbed Shem and what are the three names again? These are the three brothers.
Ham, Shem, and Japheth. Yeah, so Ham,
Shem, and
I think,
Japheth
is in the middle there. That's why he looks like more carnal, more like the mighty hunter, you know, because that's the time of year you hunt, and you start hunting in like the fall. And then you have Japheth all the way on the right. He's going to have like those green, like springtime, like the blooming things. And then you have Shem with the white. And that's like the purity, the white hot, the shining one, the initiated, you know. That's why it's always like the lion of Judah, the tribe of Judah, all that stuff. It's the summer sun. It's the peak time, the wrath of God that imbues the grape, the spirit of the grape, you know, that they press into wine come Libra. And that's Judgment Day, you know. So all this is really beautiful symbolism. You'll also notice Shem is where the word Semite comes from. And so you have this, everything that everybody who disagrees with a certain tribe these days is called an anti-Semite. But to be a Semite is predicated on being a descendant of summer, of Shem. And so since there was no physical Shem, there's no such thing as a Semite. Therefore, there's no such thing as an anti-Semite. So you can throw all that nonsense bullshit that they're doing to us in the trash where it belongs. The spiritual dustbin of the cosmos. Come at me.
I'm with you, man. With you. So here we let's drive a little more home. What are we looking at? Shiva and Poseidon, or Neptune. So I put these together side by side just because I want to show that we're not really dealing with more than one thing here. It's just repackaged.
It's so obvious that there should be not one person who's confusing this, and yet nobody can get it right. It's embarrassing. I feel like we're going into a system of slavery because it's like our punishment for being so ignorant to God's laws and to nature, the world that God made for us. That I feel like that's our punishment. And there's no other punishment. You're not going to be judged for it. You're just like, well, you know, if you're going to ignore reality, you just get more digital illusory slavery and more mental illness where people believe everything that is false is true and everything true is a conspiracy theory.
Yep. That's kind of where we're at. But the condition is not our nature. Our nature is what we're trying to show here. So none of these symbols or these statues, there's nothing wrong with it. And I really think a lot of this wasn't even created by the ones who wield the keys to the symbolism. I think a lot of it was already here. And who knows about that, but it's actually teaching us about nature and about the alchemical cycles in ourselves. We've barely touched on the fact that all of these zodiac constellations correspond to parts of your body. We will get to a little bit of that at the end, but that's a really important element of all this as well. It's not just teaching you about the external world and the seasons. It's teaching you about the stages of your life, your development, and the parts that make up your whole, your 10, your personal, the property that you're currently possessing, this body, which is your property. And there's nothing that anyone could ever do other than trick you into thinking that they had autonomy over your property, yourself. But I want to bring this one up again, just to read the verse that was on here. Acts 14:12, and they called Barnabas Jupiter and Paul Mercurius because he was the chief speaker. I mean, the Bible is littered with this, and I think there's even a lot of deception to make it look like it came from a different original language than it did. And I think that you have evidence for that in your books as well.
Yeah, and I also have evidence for... Yeah, and there's also evidence that other priest class members wrote about regarding that. There was a time that the Pope started forbidding the reading of the scriptures to the profane in ways that they could understand it. And I think that's where a lot of this started. Is it's like you said, it wasn't always like this. There was a time where, people who were like the Pope actually were like fucking women and having children and doing all this like heterosexual male stuff. And now you look at like this system, it's completely controlled by hyper homosexual inverse men and hyper inverse women who behave like gay men and are like super dominator women, like have to like they have to overcompensate for the fact that they're women by being hyper aggressive, masculine, imbalanced feminine energy. And that's what you're looking at. People say that this is a patriarchy and it's a masculine system, and I would say you haven't seen the system up close with your own eyes, because there's very few authentic heterosexual men running this show.
Yeah, and what's being done to people also have to get part of the hex that goes in with the language is that we get confusion between the concepts of masculine and feminine, or yin and yang, with male and female human beings. There's something to be, there is like something to femininity as a human being and masculinity as a human being, but these are traits that both genders have within them and need to be unified. The wolf and the lamb need to lay together, if you will, the right and the left brain. And what happens when the society becomes feminized in an unbalanced way is that because that's the yin nature, the yielding or receptive nature, it means that they're programmable. Has nothing to do with women being the root of all evil, which is part of the hex as well. It has everything to do with people being confused about about those terms. It's kind of the same as saying negative means evil or bad, when that has an entirely electrical connotation. It's part of generation. We require we require men and women to create children and for humanity to continue and life to continue. And what greater meaning to life is there other than life itself? And
look at what they've done over the past like 20 years. Like when I was growing up, everybody was talking about like STDs and AIDS and all this other bullshit. And it's like, look, it's the same fucking inbred troglodyte trash like that Fauci, which his name means Jaws in Italian. He ain't one of us. Let me tell you something. His eyes are too beady. He looks like a cookie Keebler elf. He's not one of us. He looks like an F to M trans, if you get what I'm saying. Can't grow a beard. Jaws. Fauci de Leon means jaws of the lion, right? Why would anybody be taking advice from a guy with the last name Jaws? Okay?
And then, of course, they play on that whole Dr. Faustus thing as well. They're just like, it's mockery.
And yeah, Faustian, yeah. I call him Faustian Fauci. It's exactly what I call him. And the thing is like, what is this doing? It's making people scared to fucking procreate. It's making people scared to have sex because they're terrified of getting all these STDs
or they're terrified of putting too many people in the realm, and the climate change scare. Like, oh, we can't have kids because it's going to ruin the environment.
It's total inversion. And the thing is, if you're a weak ass pussy European that loves being dominated, a lot of these people love this shit. That's why they're like this, Chance. And this is why I don't try to save anybody anymore, because I tried to save people and I realized when I was like helping them, they're like literally like, get the fuck away from me. You're ruining this. I like this slavery. That's like the reaction I get. They like the vaccines. They like the just destruction of the family. They love it. They love getting everything for free and it being worth absolutely dick. They love the digital ether. They love the investment in producing absolutely no wealth type of paradigm where everybody just shuffles around digits and debt and thinks they're a paper millionaire and somehow have created wealth and prosperity when they're nothing but a money junkie, gambling, degenerate whore. This is why I don't like being in the public space, because the more I think about it, the more I'm just like, push the fucking button already, We're dealing with a weak population, but the only reason I have some amount of hope is I know a lot of these people are weak spiritually because it started with the spiritual trash coming from the church. And that word church, well, where does it come from? Circe, or what we would say in Italian or Latin, circe. right? In German, it would be Kirke. In Greek, Kirki means falcon, right? So what does Circe or church do? Circe, she's the goddess of pharmakeia, which is witchcraft through the use of drugs, sorcery. And she turns men's mind into that of swine. So why would anybody go into a house of God called church, named after Circe? You got to be absolutely crazy. And this is where a lot of my journey started
Or
as
go
a
to a
young man.
pharmacy. A pharmacy is just the same exact home of that exact bloodthirsty goddess right there.
One and
Pharmacopoeia.
the same. And look at how sick and demented this population is, because they're completely ensconced and filled with drugs, pharmakeia, and churchian beliefs that are given to them by their pedophile priests, the priests of Apollo, the Pateres, who are the same priests of what you got going on in NASA. You don't call those moon missions Apollo for nothing. They're not named after the winter sun, the angel of the abyss, Apollyon, for nothing. Apollon. Apollo.
Yeah, man. Wow. Amazing.
So let's get into the final, the John, not the final, but the revelation of John.
The next big
otherwise
section,
known,
yeah.
otherwise known as the Great Apocalypse. And so if you go to like any like people, when they talked about this part of the Bible back in the day, centuries ago, it was referred to as the Apocalypse. They changed it so you wouldn't figure out that the word apocalypse comes from the Eleusinian mysteries, the final stage of initiation called the Great Apocalypse, which is the great unveiling where you learn the symbolism of everything so that you are no longer confounded. You are initiated or perfect. You see through the God mind now, your optic thalamus, your cerebrum, the God mind, the higher mind. And so John's revelation is really the revelation.
That's the metaphor of overcoming the lower nature, not transcending
Yes.
the body, but bringing this divine spark and spirit wholly into witness reality as it is through the body.
Yes. And the revelation of John is really the revelation of Janus, which comes from Janua or Janua, which means door. So it's door of the year, the acceptable year of January of the Lord, Janus, Janua, whose wife is Cordea, which cordo means hinge. It's the hinge of the door. So that papal authority where you see those two keys, that's the keys to the kingdom of heaven, of the old year and the new year. That's why Janus has two heads, the old man, the old year, and the new man, the new year. And so the four horsemen of the unveiling are, in fact, the four seasons. And how many sick, mentally ill people have you heard compare what we're going through today to Revelation and trying to use Revelation as prophecy for the end times? It's every friggin' generation. There's going to be a group of people who are constantly harping on this.
Controller class actually embeds the symbolism in the events that they orchestrate to cause people to believe that. I mean, think about that picture that you shared on Instagram last night of the Senate floor with, I guess, Biden speaking, and in the background there's like a cloaked figure. Stuff like that is going to wig Christians out when it could just be like it looks like an alien demon, scary dementor in the background, just like hiding in the back of the picture. But that could easily just been like a little giggle psyop, like, haha, we're going to really get them to think it's aliens or demons.
Yeah, I just thought it was funny.
It is
I'm not
funny,
saying,
like, for sure.
I
But
didn't
my
suggest
point
what
is
it is.
that, like, they put these things, these archetypes, they draw on, it's called atavism. Atavistic means that the conditions that were present in the beginning come out at the end. And that's what this whole apocalypse really is for humanity, because both in the sense of the way that the controllers are using this symbolism that lives deep in our ancestral memory and is reflective of the natural world that we were more in harmony with at a different point. It's also coming out in events in a sense, like there's some synchromysticism to it. Like it's a Ouroboros thing. We're returning to the beginning, and it's like the condition that we're going to be in when we get back to this knowing is either going to be the ashes of what's going on right now because it's not going to fly, or it's going to be some transition into a more enlightened society where we salvage Western civilization instead of burning it to the ground and replacing it with a few years of terrible communism and then most people dying.
Yeah, and it looks like we're choosing that path. So this is why this stuff, I know I get heated, and I apologize to anybody who gets offended by my tone, but like, I can't even be an authentic man in this paradigm without a bunch of freaking fusilli fruitcakes calling me a toxic masculine individual, right? You just nonsense. I can't even, if you even raise the tone of your voice to people, they melt like little fucking cowards and like, oh my goodness, he's so angry. He's being so mean. It's just a bitch, pussy fucking generation of people who can't call spades spades and look evil in the eye and kick its fucking ass. And I'm tired of it, to be honest with you. I'm tired of living in a nation of fucking pussies who let the weakest of the weak dominate them. Like Bill Gates, like Fauci, like Jeff Bezos or Jorgensen. All these fucking people. They're like the cowardly Elon Musk, whose daddy was a fucking, or his granddaddy was one of the heads at DARPA. All these people get their positions based on nepotism. They're put there. And they're weak fucking cowards who couldn't even start a fire in the middle of a forest and keep warm for the night. And they're dictating how we live and ration our lives, when the animal kingdom is much better than us, because the animal kingdom would never allow these weak fucking inauthentic cowards to rise to the top, ever. And so we don't need to criticize the lower nature at this point, because we're worse than the lower nature in the current system. We have shamed ourselves, and it starts with our erroneous religious beliefs. And that's why I'm into this stuff, because the religious beliefs are what is causing the things we're manifesting, because it starts with the way we think, then it transmutes or transfers into the way we feel about something, and then it translates into the way we act about something. So if you're a scared coward pussy, you're going to be one of these guys believes in viruses and shit and is like scurrying like a roach in the fucking light to get away from a healthy individual because you're scared of catching a non-existent virus that's never been proven to exist, right? That's because you believe nonsense. You have a religion. You have a faulty religion. Yes, and if anybody wants to...
Corona.
Yeah, and if you ever want to know what the etymology of religion is, you need to look into the words relatio, R-E-L-A-C-I-O. It's in my books, and religio, which is basically religion without the N. And then also you have like the verb relegare, all pertaining to binding, to tying fast, to thwarting from forward progress, to holding back with scruples, beliefs, you know? And so that's what where we're at, was we have a bunch of people that are afraid to do anything because they have all these fucked up beliefs that they can't do things, right? They're scared. They believe that this shit is real. So I'm not really faulting them for like initially trusting authority figures, because the real reason they do that is they can't imagine somebody would be that wicked and devious, right? They can't imagine the hyper inverse sprite, for a lack of a better word. They're like these little fairy princess demons who are like, tee-hee! Like they are not men. Not one authentic man would be scared of these fucking people in the real world. I've been around all of them, okay? They're fucking weak, and the average man could dominate these people in a room within a couple minutes. They literally, that's why they can't do anything. They got to hire low IQ thugs to do all their physical violence for them, because it's not going to be them showing up. Anybody going to let Fauci show up to their door and inject their kids with something? No, you'd whoop his ass, send him down the stairs, right?
Yeah,
you wouldn't
man.
be sitting here tolerating that trash. I wouldn't, and I'm not going to. It's not in my life, you know? Come at me with that, and I'm not afraid of going to the next world, to dying. I'm not. So that's why I moved to a place with a less population, because I'm not going to do anything, but I'm not going to, you know, I'm just going to bide my time and try to get through this life without having to cause harm to others. But the moment this shit shows up at my door, it's on, baby, and I'm excited for it. Give me the excuse. That's where I'm coming from. So let's get back onto the Four Horsemen, because I'm in that mood right now.
Yeah, man. Let me make a quick point because what you're describing is so important. The way you laid it all out, the passion is there. I absolutely love it. If there's any way in which our relationship has been like a mentorship to me, it's to see what authentic masculinity and not saying sorry for for anything and having healthy boundaries looks like. And I'm always going to be a more chill guy than you, but in my heart, I feel everything that you're saying, and I have plenty of moments where I'm just enraged about what's going on or how someone I care for deeply has been affected by these lies, everything inverted. And what I want people to know is that it is this concept of mysteria, what Tessarion calls mysteria. It is ideas about ideas that have lost all grounding in reality, in anything real. And that's what these religious hexes are, and what they've done by putting this type of thinking in an individual. Well, the world influences our thinking, and our thinking influences our world. But what if our world is no longer influencing our thinking beyond just programming coming from these trash controllers like you're talking about? Then you have people who their thinking is affecting the world, but their thinking is so dissonant that the cacophony and contradictions in their own mind and in their own thoughts are creating nothing but dissonance and disharmony in the world around them. And hence, everything that's going on that is actually true about the way our climate is being, our biosphere is being destroyed, not global warming, but the real, actual biosphere depletion that's going on right now and has been going on for a very long time, beyond what anyone could probably ever really get to the bottom of. Something is weird. There's some predatory energy going on here, but it's all based on our thinking. It's even right down to the monetary system. You've got a debt-based paradigm that has a never-ending consumption model because there's always got to be more money added, and so there's got to be more commerce and more made-up Monopoly game boards and derivatives and stocks to share and Pokemon or whatever. And yeah, now I'm getting a little mad about it, but this is...
It's all right. It's better you go off because then I don't look as bad.
Yeah, but dude, to just get to the point of this, like, we have to understand how philosophy has been wielded against the world and how philosophy has been unanchored from anything in reality. And then we get things like simulation theory. And I've done work on this, and the book Disciples of the Mysterium by Michael Tessarion, I've been telling people if they just need to really get the basics, they should read your books and they should read that one from Michael. There's a lot of other books of his that are worth reading, but that one alone, break the conceptual hexes out of your mind. Get rid of supernatural ideas. Throw everything out that wasn't your own experience. I'm not saying there aren't ways to visit other dimensions or speak to dead relatives or whatever, but make it your personal thing that you only know what you know because of what you've felt, seen, experienced in your own life and nothing from others. Drop the mysteria. Maybe a close personal friend that you trust could have a conversation with you and convince you of some reality of something, but anything coming from these traditions, from these religions, from these literalist mythologies is the thing that is poisoning you against yourself at the end of the day, especially with the Abrahamics and even in like some ways of Buddhism in a mainstream sense. The world is not a prison. This is not Satan's playground. You're giving evil so much power by believing all of this is a fallen world and mankind is fallen and you aren't whole and you're broken. You're breaking the world by being broken internally. And this is how you put it back together.
Well, I would even go a step further and just say evil is not something that exists. Nobody's born evil. It's a choice. You're evil by your deeds. You know, it's more like an adjective. That's the one thing I do like about the Kabbalists is they describe evil as a direction. Like something in the direction, you can either make a choice to do that's going to bring you in a direction towards good or towards evil. But it's not actually something you're inherently one or the other, right? Because good people do bad things all the time. Bad people can do good things, you know? And so it's one of those things like,
yang. That's what that symbol shows you.
yeah. And so like, that's the thing is everybody's like freaking themselves out and their own imaginations are their worst enemy. And that's the power of religion is it can get your imagination. It uses the power of your mind against you through programming what it thinks and what it believes. And religion can be an amazing thing. Like religion can be something that makes someone fearless, right? And they live in such a way that they're not afraid of anything. And they take such dramatic action and such bold moves because they believe that there's this whole safety net of spiritual forces keeping them safe. And so by taking that away from them, you might be causing them harm, because even though you're giving them the truth, all of a sudden they live a life that's like not as bold anymore, because they're like, shit, there was no spiritual safety net. I was just fucking making these decisions on my own, and I was kicking ass. I was actually winning on my own without any help. And now I don't have the confidence to do that because I'm scared that I'm by myself now. And all of a sudden someone behaves differently, and that can be just as damaging.
But think about it, if you have kids, wouldn't that be the way you wanted your kids to learn, to be self-reliant and not need a safety net? That's what that's the creator of the realm sees that this way. That's what the intelligence of this realm is all about, getting you to drop the safety net.
And I think, this world is not for the weak. If you want safety, it's another one of those abstract things that doesn't exist. There is no such thing as safety or security. You can create it for yourself, but even then it's only temporary. And just talk to anybody who's ever lived in a country that's been invaded, whether or not their security was temporary or not, you know? And so a lot of it is, a stroke of fortune. And one of the things that you were noting about philosophy, that's, I think, one of the problems with a civilization that's created too much abundance for itself artificially, is people now have the luxury to get philosophical about things. And that can be good to one degree, but it can also be really harmful in another degree, because now you have people like just going over the edge with their philosophical discussions, that they're becoming like attorneys, like everything is like a word game to them and not based in reality on what's right and wrong. Does it cause harm? Doesn't it cause harm? You know what I mean? Like, it just gets it off into this airy fairyland where, it's a luxury of having too much abundance, in my opinion.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And then also putting like authoritative stock in one person's ideas over another, instead of letting everyone's philosophy be something that grows naturally, the fruit of their own consciousness. There's even an argument to be made that it's a bad idea to even share your own personal cosmology or your deep philosophical belief about the realm. Because it's like, as soon as you're adding someone else's mind to that, you got to be careful that you trust them, because they could easily twist your own perspective of your own life by how they respond to what you say. And then all of a sudden it's their idea about your idea instead of your idea about your life as it is for you. So there's something to be said about that your personal philosophy, cosmology, way of viewing the world is like the fruit. It's the gift of your consciousness from self to self. And we don't need a unifying philosophy from a top-down sense, other than the top-down sky clock philosophy, which again, all that symbolism is all conceptual. All that matters is that in the past you would have seen this red star and known what time of year it was. Like it just boils down to the basics of, and then all this other stuff was added onto it because people had all the time to think about it, and there's a lot of good beauty and art to this symbolism. But if all we ever really needed was to boil it down to help us know when it is and where we are, and what we can do for life to prosper in this moment. And we've gotten so off touch with that because of artificial abundance. That's a really good point.
But the beautiful thing is, what you're describing right now is, anytime you ever get lost in life and you're looking for direction or what's going on, you can just shut everything off and go outside to the world that God made you. And you can reset, because this world is a creation. And if anybody doesn't think that, I would just say, is there any scientific evidence of gas pressure existing without the necessary antecedent, meaning it has to occur before a container or some sort of containment? No? Then how are you breathing gas pressure? Oh, that's because you're in a closed environment and nobody's going out into space, because that would violate the second law of thermodynamics. You're an enclosed construct. That's made by God. I don't care what you conceptualize God as. You don't have to humanize it or anything like that, or drag it down to like what we are. But there is a creative force. This world is magnificent. This life is a gift. And that's the only reason I'm very careful with not taking action against others and just raising my own consciousness, my own knowledge, and sharing that knowledge with others, because ultimately, in the game of Thrones, the cycles of mobs and nations, you can't win through force. It's a mental game. That's what I really loved about the Hermeticists, is the all is mind, because everything has to exist as a thought force first. You know, this is a spiritual realm. Matter is like an effect of spirit. Matter cannot exist without spiritual force behind it, but spirit can exist without matter. Indeed, it does. And all you got to do is look at life. What makes life? What makes your baby? What makes your puppy? What makes your plant? Something in the spiritual realm manifests that. It's just matter. But something's animating it. Something's creating it. Something's designing it. And it ain't you. You just rubbed your genitals with someone else until you had an orgasm. That process, you didn't design that process. And when you look at it, it's very magnificent, but everybody takes it for granted because they're too busy, jerking off to porn all day, watching Hollywood, just sorcery infesting their brains. Yeah, I mean, it's just like, it's one. Well, I play video games myself. I like that. It's a good outlet for me.
To the point of doing only that. I mean, I still play some games too. We talk about it, but
listen, video games were there for me when I was waking up to. I was around all these powerful people back in 2006 and shit, and a little bit earlier. It started in 2005. I got so depressed when I found out what was going on. I was in my mid-20s. I literally just played Guild Wars like all day when I wasn't at work. Guild Wars was like the heterosexual man's version of World of Warcraft. No offense. World of Warcraft is like not, it's like, it's too childish. The graphics suck. Guild Wars was where it was at. But World of Warcraft had a more popular, it had more longevity. And so that's what I did to escape.
But that's a different story.
Yeah. Yeah. But I appreciate when people like, as someone who loves stories, I love the escapism. I do. Because this reality has become so difficult to take that sometimes, so I appreciate why people want to escape. But at the end of the day, if you ain't going to confront the real world and take real action and create real wealth and get real skills and own real things and do real things and have real friends and you name it in the actual world, if you're not willing to do that, well, then you're going to keep sitting idly by while this perverted, weak-ass, inauthentic class of people dominates you. And they would never be able to dominate you if you weren't dominating yourself.
Yeah, reality is salvation, folks.
I think it's time to get back to the great unveiling and go into the rider on the white horse. And
Dude,
I saw,
kicking ass. I just want you to know this is amazing. We're so grateful to have your knowledge.
Oh man, anytime. I mean, I might come to I always regret when I get worked up. I'm like, I can feel myself getting worked up. And I'm like, damn it, dude, why are you doing that? Why are you doing that? But I can't stop myself because just thinking about these people makes me want to get my stomping shoes on. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
do it publicly in front of their mothers. I want to do it publicly. I want their mothers to see what I do to them. And I've already done that in person. I've whooped someone's ass in a town square while his mother watched me whoop his ass. I'm not afraid to do it. But I have to watch how I behave because there's a bunch of punk thugs who are willing to do the bidding of evil and protect them. So my hands are tied. So really it's on the masses and it's on the women to get back to, in my opinion, the women have all the power right now because they could easily just stop dating any of these people. It's like, if you work for evil, if you work for this mechanism that steals freedom, if you support this shit, we're not dating you. No straight guy is going to want to be in the military or in the police if the women won't sleep with them anymore.
I mean, that goes for any.
And that's not to knock. That's not to knock small
don't be
towns
friends with people. This is just about boundaries. But anyway, that's a good point. I think the females have the power too to have more of an influence over the young men and young women to turn into psychopaths or not. Like, not that fathers play no role, but fathers play less and less of a role a lot lately. And anyway, it's a vicious cycle, but let's get into the Four Horsemen, man. We got to roll. This is a bit of a divergent there. It was good, but I think we should get on point so we don't keep people here all night. Yeah.
Well, they're free to leave. We're not doing this for them. No offense, everybody, but this is going for the record books. This is for people who come after us and wonder what the fuck happened during this time of absolute degeneracy. So the rider on the white horse, you want to read that? This comes from Revelation 6, 1 through 2.
And I saw when the Lamb opened one of the seals, and I heard, as it were the noise of thunder, one of the four beasts saying, Come and see. And I saw, and behold, a white horse, and he that sat on him had a bow, and a crown was given unto him, and he went forth conquering and to conquer.
So there's 4 key words that'll help you solve this. There's the Lamb. We always know that's Aries, right? The 5 wounds in the Lamb, the 5 months of suffering, that's winter. What's the first season when winter's over? That would be the Lamb, the first seal. So we're now in springtime. The white horse, and he who is sitting upon it is having a bow. And there was given unto him a crown. So you have a white horse, a bow, and a crown. This is actually a perfect time of year to see this truth, because you can go out and observe Sagittarius, which you can't see during the time of year when hunting is needed and the sun's actually in the house of the hunter, because he's blotting him out, but you can see him now. And so the sun is in Aries, thus the Lamb opened the seal, the Lamb of God, Jesus, the sun in Aries. He has risen. The sun has risen above the vernal equinox. The days are now outweighing the nights. And so the 4 living creatures are what we covered with the solar cross and the tarot and the wheel of fortune, right? The royal stars. The rider on the horse has a bow, which is obviously Sagittarius, since Orion is traditionally depicted with a club like Heracles, right? And the last clue, as leaving no doubt, is that the rider having a crown. And so what crown is near Sagittarius in the southern sky? Or near the Tropic of Capricorn? That would be the southern crown, Corona Australis. There it is. The sun is entering Aries, and across what's on the opposite side of the sky? Sagittarius.
There it is, and we'll just flow into the next
Yep.
one and keep
So
making this point.
The rider on the red horse is going to be war. So if you figure out that, the way symbolism is structured is once you have these keys, then you can know that, okay, well, second seal is going to be summer, third seal is going to be autumn, and fourth seal is going to be winter. Pack your bags. It's over. But obviously, red represents fire, spirit, masculinity, Deus, God, right? The wrath of God, the summer sun. He scorches the earth and takes peace from the land, if you will. And Leo is allegorized as King Herod, right? Which would be, he uses the great sword, if you will, to behead John the Baptist in late August when the sun symbolism was conceived, right? So if you were to look at the sidereal system, you'd want to wait until the sun is in the constellation of Leo to see this play out astrologically. But what would happen is you would see how Aquarius dips below the horizon, so you only see its head. And across from that is Leo, or King Herod. And so it looks like he's beheading John the Baptist. January, John, Aquarius.
And there it is in the, now think about this as I read it out loud, everyone, what he just said and how that's encoded in these words. When he had opened the second seal, I heard the second beast say, Come and see. And there went out another horse that was red, and power was given to him that sat thereon to take peace from the earth, and that they should kill one another. And there was given unto him a great sword. Beheading. So use a sword for that.
Yep. And words. Sword is words. It's an anagram for words. Right. Let's get back to, let's get on to autumn. Famine.
And when he had opened the third seal, I heard the beast say, Come and see. And I beheld, and lo, a black horse, and he that sat on him had a pair of balances in his hand. And I heard a voice in the midst of the 4 beasts say, A measure of wheat for a penny, and 3 measures of barley for a penny, and see thou hurt not the oil and the wine. It's so obvious when you know this. Like, this is a review for me because I've read your book, and it's practically cracking me up how obvious it is now.
It's very childlike. It's not. It wasn't written for like only, you know, like if you. It's very simple. If you're not thinking from a place of quote unquote philosophy, oh, with my Gnosticism, I'd want to philosophize about the meaning of the scales of justice. And motherfucker, it's Libra. Grow your ass up, you dunce. You overly abundant dunce. And that's what somebody's got to smack these cowards because they can't get it.
Well, we have to, I mean, there's some compassion at least for people out there. Here's what I want to say. I have a lot of compassion for people out there who are wanting to do better in the world. They really are, but they're still confounded by mysteria because they haven't got these keys to decipherment. And so they, maybe believe in random gods and goddesses from multiple systems and don't see those as like a thought form, an archetype that you can use to access on the imaginal realm. And, you have a personal relationship with these type of things, but it's not literal stuff. Like it's tough. It's always the sky clock, and the sky clock is archetypes and archetypes, arc of the sky of the zodiac. And that's also related to internal emotional states and parts of your body and organs. But when we just make it all about the ideas and the ideas about the ideas and supernatural, beyond nature, that's what supranatural means, beyond nature. How can you be beyond existence? The whole point of all this is that reality is salvation. Reality itself is the only way that we can exist. We have to exist in reality. We can't exist in ideas only.
And I appreciate your compassion because you haven't had the experiences that I have. I don't have the compassion you do is because when I did have compassion and tried to help people see this, you get nothing but vitriol and attacked. And so
not today.
I used to have a big social
quiet
media.
And just these guys are just.
Well, nobody's going to come at me today because I'll pimp smack them right across their fat lip. But you ain't going to come to my face and say anything that you'd say to me online because you know what would happen to you. And I am not afraid to do it either. Test me. But where I'm going with this is the symbolism. You're dealing with a demon infestation, in my opinion. And anytime you talk about this stuff, it evokes those demons, and they come out of people like the woodwork. And so I'm used to having to deal with people who send me nothing but hate. It's very rare that I have people, when it's becoming more commonplace where people are like, oh, your books are changing my life and all that. And it's like, yeah, I appreciate that. But it's like, I'm lost. It's over for me. There's no, the days I had to be compassionate with people are gone because I had to deal with all these people for 15 years too long and get attacked for it. That's why I don't like social media. I used to have a big account and I have anxiety because I used to get, thousands of notifications and stuff. And it's like, it really, and I'm already a scrappy person. Like these people talk to me online in ways that they would never dare talk to me face to face like a man because they know what happens. And they know I'm from Newport, Rhode Island, and I grew up with Irish people. And you know what Irish people do? They fight.
Yeah, that's why I love the Telegram, dude. No trolls in there. People are super cool. That's it's so a whole different internet experience.
Back to the black horse because I get on my diatribes. Yeah, do it.
So we've got this is just fun for me. A measure of wheat for a penny and 3 measures of barley for a penny. So where are we at whenever we've passed the scales and now we're talking about barley and wheat and oil and wine? So it's obvious symbolism of the harvest season, and even the earthiness of Virgo being referenced here with the coin, which is the pentacle, which is one of the suits in the tarot. There's a lot here. I'm sure you've got something to say about the black horse as well.
If I'm not mistaken, the pentacle that's like earthy, right? It's supposed to be like it would be like
the earth
corresponding to the earth.
Yeah, the coin.
And that's and so hey. Why then should I think upon a maid? Because you're not supposed to harvest until the sun goes into Libra, fall. You don't harvest when the sun is in Virgo. And that's a very important thing. So like you said, the keys for this are the black horse, right? Who exalts in Libra? That would be Saturn. Black is the color of death, right? And so this goes all the way back to Anubis, who holds the scales. And the root word of his name, like I said while you were away, comes from Anu, the year. Anus, right? Anno, annually. So this is where Judgment Day occurs. That's why Michaelmas Day is September 28th or 29th, roughly every year, because they used to have the equinox pegged the autumnal equinox back to the end of September, not in September 21st or 23rd, whatever it is. No, it's 23rd now, I think. And basically, all these wheat, like you said, the wheat, the barley, the oil from the bread, from the olives, the bread is fat. The wine corresponds to the harvest season. And so that occurs when the sun leaves Virgo, enters Libra in the tropical system. And if you don't reap a good harvest, you get famine. That's why it's called famine. The rider on the black horse is autumn, famine. And that's also where the dying of the soul or the sun, which will then be, it begins there, or the eve, right? That corresponds to the evening. If you were to look at the zodiac like a microcosm of a day, that's where eve would occur. That's why the fall happens, the fall of man. It's
blamed on
brings
Eve.
Forth,
it's all an allegory.
Yeah, and Eve literally means life. So it's like, yeah, life causes death. It's not safe to live. You're going to die. If you live, you're going to die. Fact.
Yeah, and I want people to know that this is like such a overview compared to what you'd get if you were diving into this section of his book where he goes through this. It's very much more elaborated. Like, we're just showing you this in the best way we can so that you'll know what you're looking at with this stuff. But if you need more evidence or need convincing, or you're just interested and maybe you want to be able to help explain this to people, I'm telling you, Spirit World books are where it's at. There's more to it. Like
some
the
people
wine
will never
symbolism
read.
itself is really interesting.
This is our charity. We're doing this for free, right? You and I are just here having a good time. We pretty much don't even realize like who's gonna watch or who is watching. I mean, we can see some of our friends in there, but it's like the reality is this is our charity. We're doing this for free, and we're spending time out of our lives that we're never getting back to do this. And so we're having fun. We're enjoying it for the most part, you know, except for when I get worked up. It's a really good time. So
I have been watching.
Let's take us on to winter.
There's been some great stuff in there. I'll just reply to the latest thing Richard said about discernment. Think about, well, who is CERN? To discern, and it's also got the word disc in it. CERN.
And this, the god of the underworld.
What they called, what do they call that Large Hadron Collider that they do all those freaky rituals in front of and have the Shiva statue? It's called CERN.
After Cernunnos, which is going to correspond to the winter sun in winter, which is perfect where we're going. Pan.
Discernment.
And how would you pronounce that?
Go ahead.
Well, hold on. Is it discernment or is it diskern or kiren, like Kronos in the horn? We're going to get into that with Moses.
Yeah. Man, there's even a lot left. This is wild. Okay, fourth one.
Hey, man, let's just have fun. Fuck it.
I'm having
that's
a great
all I'm
time.
here for.
Did it not seem
No,
like
I love talking
was?
about this stuff with you because you create a safe space for me, you know? Whereas like I can't really go on other people's podcasts because I just don't trust anybody because I've dealt with so many scumbags, you know?
Yeah, I'm lucky that we can do these collabs, man. I feel like we got a good...
No, you earned your
synergy.
trust. You earned your trust because you were teaching the material in my books in your own way and doing something with it. That's why I warmed up to you.
And I'll read the fourth
Hit
seal.
it.
Death. And when he opened the fourth seal, I heard the voice of the fourth beast say, "Come and see." And I looked, and behold, a pale horse. And his name that sat on him was Death, and hell followed with him. And power was given unto them over the fourth part of the earth, to kill with sword, and with hunger, and with death, and with the beasts of the earth. One thing I learned the other day was that pale is an archaic word for light green, like a sickly greenish color, like this image right here. That's why I thought this was such a good image.
Awesome. I didn't know that actually. And so they're already giving you the hint. His name is Death, and Hades doth follow with him, right? Hades, hell, it's an allegory for winter and the authority to kill, right? Because winter kills all the life in the world over the fourth part of the land. So if we were to divide the land, the zodiac, or our year into 4 parts, which is the fourth part? Winter. It's pretty easy. It's not like we're not doing rocket science, but this is where actually maybe this is rocket science is easier since they're just fucking shooting off rockets into the Bermuda Triangle anyway, and they're not going into space. But anyways,
Oh, now they got CG too.
yeah, it's all nonsense. But this was the impetus for Bill Cooper's book, Behold the Pale Horse. And it's literally like saying, behold death, behold hell, behold winter. It's like fear porn. And he walked back all that shit he did on ufology, right? James Corbett did a great job debunking the protocols of Zion elders. That's all plagiarized, fake, rehashed shit. Not to say that it's not happening, but if the work is not real, then you can't address it, because it's a logical fallacy to address something that's not authentic. And also, that pale horse is allegorized as the unicorn, which is the one seed, right? Just like Capricorn is the goat seed. And so the unicorn is an alternative symbolism of Saturn. And so that's, in my opinion, why you see this theme of winter is coming. You know, you see unicorn symbolism everywhere, especially in that inverted community, right? The inauthentic women and men love unicorns. They love it.
It's also a big one in the old Freemason texts. They really like that symbol too. I think that's
because it's a symbol for Kronos, Corona,
yeah,
the winter sun, Saturn, you name it. And the real animals that this derived from would be like the narwhal, which means corpse whale. And in that horn is that Christos, that oil, right? Christos, the anointed one, right? But like that cerebral spinal fluid that goes down our spine, in the cavity of the spine or whatever. So it's symbolic to Christ. It's symbolic to the birth of Christ, which is always at the beginning of winter. Christmas, Xmas, 10 Mas, if you will. And so it's pretty easy that winter lasts from the fourth part of the year, from December 25th or 21st to March 21st. And then we'd end back up to Aries, the first seal. And then so the fifth and sixth seal, you can refer to my books to see what those are. But we're not going to go into it, because all that's really important with that revelation are the four horsemen of the apocalypse. And there's a reason it's 4 horsemen, not 6. And winter is really important to Persephone, who also is known as Kori. And that means daughter or maiden, because she's taken to the underworld by Hades, which is winter. So this goes back into the Jesus and Mary symbolism. Well, where is Virgo at? Midnight. On midnight, when winter is officially beginning. You know, after the sun has risen its first degree since the winter equinox. The winter solstice. That would be what I said earlier with the Virgo on the ascendant. And then throughout the night, she's rising to the midheaven. And so by the time dawn occurs, she's at the top of the sky, ruling winter, if you will. And so what does she carry? Persephone carries a sheaf of grain. Which constellation has a star that represents a sheaf of wheat? That would be Virgo, spica, spike. That's what it means in Latin. It's a spike of wheat or a spike of corn. And corn in the old world means seed, hence Capricorn, goat seed of the goat. And so what time does the sun move through Spica? That would be late summer. And after it moves through it, the harvest begins. So the Romans called her Libera, which is the daughter of Ceres, right? Which is the seed, again. And she was a goddess of wine, which is why she's encoded in Lady Liberty. And Ceres literally means seed, hence the reason the symbolism of agriculture is laid up in the Virgo archetype. Blessed is the fruit of thy womb, the fruitful mother. And so she is ultimately Isis, right? The moon. But everything from Taurus, Virgo, and Venus, they all correspond to her as the sacred feminine aspect in the spiritual realms and of consciousness. And so 6 months out of the year, she stays in the night sky during the winter cycle. And then 6 months out of the year, she stays in the daytime sky during the summer cycle. So that's the mythology of Persephone and Hades.
Underworld half the year, and in the living world half the year. Yep. That's wrapped up. That's an awesome little decode there. I mean, you can basically do this with anything from a 12 labors of Hercules to Jason in the quest for the golden fleece. It's all the golden fleece, the golden ram. Come on, guys. I hope you guys see the picture. Like, once you see this pattern, it will improve your pattern recognition across all of these. Really, I say it all the time. Psychic self-defense is all about symbolic literacy.
Yep. And so if you want, now we can move into the optic thalamus, or we could do the caduceus or caduceus first, whichever you have lined up.
I've got thalamus next, so we'll start there, and then we'll go to the caduceuses after that, I believe. Yep.
So one of the things I feel like regarding the optic thalamus is that I feel like there's been a whole bunch of new age stuff laid up in it to think like, I don't know, like activating it is like this easy, airy fairy. Like there's this new age like law of attraction perversion where it's just like, I think and it becomes. I don't have to actually do anything in the physical world. You know, if I think I'm enlightened, I become enlightened, you know?
Yeah, because thinking
and I think
isn't
that's
necessarily like using the imaginal in a constructive way. Sometimes thinking is not, it's not about just thinking. Like even when it comes to doing something, I don't know, like energy healing or long range energy healing, which I've personally both given and received, and I know that there's something there and amazing potential, but it requires the imagination to be used in an active, intentional way, not just to be like, I mean, it's just not the same, in my opinion, if you're just like, let it be so, and you snap your fingers. I think that there's more energy flow, energy transfer of whatever you want to say when you focus your imagination and bring attention to that and visualize. And that's a very different, I mean, some teachers will give you that, but a lot of people just get the surface level idea of law of attraction, and they're just like, oh, if I think hard enough about a car, I'll get it. And they're missing a lot deeper architecture of thought that you'd really be better off learning this type of idea through the Kybalion or something like that, getting to a more well-rounded understanding of the mental, causal, and effectual planes. But yeah, I agree that the mainstream way law of attraction is often thrown around has been not a very useful thing overall. It's kind of closer to magical child thinking than actual wizardry.
It comes from hyper-materialists. Like when I was a real estate agent at Keller Williams in West Hollywood back in the day, like in the 2006 through 2008, I was at the office with the most successful realtors in Los Angeles. And every month we had these fucking secret parties. Like, you know that book, The Secret? Only they would watch the movie, The Secret. And it's all about like visualizing. So like all this fucking stuff comes from this hyper-materialistic thing. And if you don't know how to word yourself against it, you subscribe to it. It's like almost like the lottery mindset, or it's like trying to create a fake, like an emotional hot button to something that is material and not spiritual. And the thing is, if you unite with something material or dead, you know, energetically dead, an image, that's a recipe for spiritual death, because a warrior unites with eternity. If you don't have a real good why, a spiritual why that's infinite, that's not going to change with the seasons or the times, you're doomed. And that's why people like you are always going to be okay, because truth is what we united with. So it doesn't matter. We're always going to serve truth. But I'm going to put something in the comments, and I want everybody to look up mucoid plaque. I spelled it. It'll show up in a couple moments. And this is one of the things that I really believe is getting in the way of people activating their optic thalamus. And so people might not want to hear this, but cleansing is something that needs to be done. But around cleansing is a whole psyop-y like community as well that you need to watch out for. And what I think is going on is we have parasites in the external world. Like, think of all these people who are like fucking with us and infringing upon our freedom and trying to disarm us so that we can be their, like, you know, their perfect slaves. Well, those parasites in the external world are reflections. They're like, this is what I liked about Michael Tsarian's work, is because he hit on this, as he called them like the macrobes and the microbes. And so that reflection of the parasites in the internal world of our bodies, because of all the demonic food we consume or junk, whatever it is, corresponds to the demonic people creating this shit to make us sick, to profit off of us. You know, the prophets of death, if you will. Prophet.
We buy it
Now,
from them. That's why they exist. It's as simple as that.
exactly. And that's why I don't blame them. Because they're just demonic, filthy, spiritually degenerate trash.
They're like
and they
animals
have no
filling a
power.
role in an ecosystem. They're just like a cleanup crew, just like bacteria in your body can be when you're unhealthy. And
Yeah.
yeah, it is. It's like mold growing on a piece of bread that didn't get eaten.
It's, you know, only the mold might have like a good effect on you, whereas they're just like completely toxic. But it's kind of like a reflection, you know, like you always hear as it is above, so it is below. And people say as on earth, so in the sky, but they never finish it, or they finish it erroneously. They'll say as within, so without, but without means to not have. So that's not a grammatically correct saying. It goes, the outward doth from the inward roll, and the inward dwells in the inmost soul. And so everyone needs to type into Google Images, so you know what I'm talking about, mucoid plaque, and you need to be honest with yourself. If you haven't gotten that out of your system, that's what you're infested with. So you don't need to be focusing on anybody else's problems. And if you hear someone talking about health, ask him or her if they know what that is. And if they don't, then that's the only thing you need to know about them regarding their knowledge on health. And so there's a great cleanse that I have no connection to, but it's what I used. It's called Ejuva. It'll be EJUVA. I've never spoken to anyone who works with the company. I just I had friends that were into like this stuff, and they guided me. And so it might be beneficial to your audience if you even reach out to the creator of that and have him on to talk about it in depth, because people think they're automatically going to become enlightened after a cleanse due to what they see online, but it doesn't work like that. It's literally the prerequisite. And
bro,
you're not
so
going
right.
to get. Go ahead. I thought you.
I'll jump in, but unless you want to finish that thought, I was just agreeing.
Well, I was just going to say, you're not going to get the full benefit of anything if your body is caked with toxic sludge from the years of putting awful things into your vessels. And so raising the Christos, the oil, the anointed, the cerebral spinal fluid that gets made by your optic thalamus, goes down to the base of your spine, comes back up. It's a lot easier to do that if you're healthy. And it's most likely impossible to do if you're not healthy.
Yeah, man. When I got turned on to the mucoid plaque by, ironically, the 7th episode of my show, my friend Chris, who I just talked to today for the first time in a long time, he hit me up out of the blue. He told me about Seven Bomar on the 7th episode of my show, and Secret Energy, which was a new website back then. And he got me turned on to the colon cleanse kit they have on that site, which I actually have. They're often out of stock, so I can't say that you'll be able to get it from there. But I actually do have an affiliate link with them, so without paying any more, you actually can support the show. Out of the description of any episode, there's a link to Secret Energy Shop, and they've got a lot of good stuff. I haven't tested everything, but what I've tried has been good. And anyway, I did this cleanse. We did a couple episodes way back in the day. I called it Metaphysical Dumps, because I realized even then the connection between what I was doing, purging my internal plaques and dropping all this Mysteria garbage. I had no terminology for it. So what I called it, I thought it was a big joke. I was dumping out everything of my metaphysical mind and at the same time clearing out my colon. And crazy stuff came out. And during the last day of that cleanse, which was like a liquid only fast, I even had like some out of body experiences spontaneously, and energy was crazy. And so anyway, that's exactly what you're talking about. At least in my life, I couldn't even activate things beyond just physical lower animal existence until I did a cleanse like that. And it's like, it's not even a process that's done for me. It's something that I need to continue doing more of and work with the other organs. It's not just the colon.
Yeah, you want to do it like once a year if you can.
Exactly, because it's exactly. And there's so much in there that'll come out. It'll blow people's minds, but it literally does correspond to also clearing out your mind. You're cleaning out your inside. You can look at all these organs as filters, because just like in your house, if you never change the filter or clean the filter, whatever it's caught is still there. That's all there is to it.
Yeah, and in the mechanism, as way it's been described to me, it's actually a good thing because it's protecting your body from all these toxins and shit, and so that's why it's holding on to them.
Exactly. It
And then,
doesn't to get rid of it till it has the energy to do it. And you're
well, the
giving yourself
problem
energy
is
by eating less hard, solid foods for that time period. You stimulate the digestive tract to move things out with herbs and the cleanse. But yeah,
yeah,
there's
and
a
so
maybe
the
wrong way to do
Ejuva
it.
cleanse is like the Ejuva cleanse is a 4 week cleanse, but really the first 3 weeks are building you up, and you're using herbs to weaken everything to like slowly like eat away at everything while also maintaining like a raw foods diet while also weaning yourself off of eating. And then the real cleanse is a week-long juice fast, but then while you're going on the juice fast you're also getting colonics every day. And so that's what people don't realize, like if you don't get colonics when you do this, you're not going to get the full benefit. You're not going to really wash and get all that stuff out.
What's a
And
colonic?
colonic is like they put it's like they put like a little knot, like a nozzle, or like not like, I don't know, some like
Just spray it
tube.
out, basically.
No, they just generally put it in your rear end. Only goes in like a half an inch or whatever, quarter of an inch, and it gently fills up your colon with water. The thing is, the reason it's different from an enema is an enema only goes like a little ways into your colon, whereas this goes all the way up. You can feel it all the way up to like your chest. And what it does is it gently goes up there, and then when it releases, the water has like a kind of like a almost like a suction effect or peeling back effect as you expel it, and it slowly pulls that shit off. And so on the week-long juice fast, you're not adding more physical matter to your body, so you're really taking it easy on your digestive tract, and you're also with the colonics pulling off with all the stuff that you've been weakening for the first 3 weeks. And that's why it's such a good fast.
I personally think
And
this is
I did
great.
it, so I'm not selling anything. I'm just telling you what I used because I had people who are like the best of the best. David Avocado Wolf recommended it too.
There you go. Yeah, so
And he's legit.
that's how I know this is a really good one, because cleansing came up and I didn't even know that was on the hit list, and that's such a component to all this. It's like he's giving
Well, I
you
didn't get this
major,
knowledge.
yeah, he's giving
Like
you
I didn't
major
start getting
solutions. I
these
mean,
downloads
other people
till
have
I
given
till
these
I did this
solutions
stuff.
too out there, but like this is a really important one. I agree with you completely. Like we got to take these steps.
If you don't cleanse your body of the shit in it, the parasites, all that stuff, they're going to be programming the way you think. And I also think it's even worse. I think your parasites are going to be connecting with other people's parasites at a, this is just my opinion, but I think there's like some friggin' perverse
Hive
attraction,
mind.
and you're going to attract more toxic people who've got nasty parasites in them because your parasites are communicating with them at like a spiritual level or something. I just feel like when I did this, I did my back like in 2015. And so like
Me too.
the the spiritual experiences that happen don't happen until you get your body right.
Yeah.
You think they might happen, but they don't happen. Like you don't, if you've never done this, if you've never activated your optic thalamus, you've never had that experience, you don't even know what we're talking about right now.
And
And
it's
so
better that
that's
we
where
don't
like,
even try to describe it, man. It just can't really be put in. It's weird because it can't be put into language, but like when this happens, language becomes something that you know and you feel, and the sounds, you know what the
yeah,
sounds are. It's a completely different way of perceiving reality.
yep. But it feeds into the caduceus or the caduceus, which we're going into, because if you look at it from a physiological process, that spine is like it's like a highway for your nervous system. So if you have toxins in your body, that stuff can disrupt your central and peripheral nervous system. If you're not getting the right nutrients, if you're caked up with junk. So that's part of like this process of keeping a healthy body, is keeping everything clean, so the natural function of your cerebral spinal fluid can make it from your optic thalamus down to the base of your spine and back up. And you raise it. You deliver your body its daily bread, if you will. And so going back to the caduceus or the caduceus, I mean, we've just been talking about the spine. Do you need to, I mean, it's almost like you don't have to explain any further. But the root of the word is kado, which means I fall, I die, I decay, as well as kadus, which is a vessel or a jar. And so in the symbolism, not only could you interpret the top of the caduceus to the Tropic of Cancer or the summer solstice, and then the bottom of it to the winter solstice, the Tropic of Capricorn, but you can also, that would be the microcosm, but in the, that would be the macrocosm, but in the microcosm, you could see how the top would be your cerebrum, the bottom would be the base of your spine, the bottom of the cosmic man, Adam Kadmon. And so, if you take care of your vessel, you will stay in good condition longer than you would have thought, right? There's a lot of people who take really good care of themselves, and they're a lot older than you think they are. But sickness, ugliness, aging, physical degeneracy, they're all normalized in this society because there's so much wealth to be made off of unhealthy, dependent individuals, right? Like, it's almost normal for people to have like autism, Parkinson's, dementia, like all these things. They've been normalized, right? An unhealthy person isn't a threat to the system of control or power, all right? So like those wings, they represent the hemispheres of the brain, while the serpents represent the sympathetic nervous systems on each side of the spine that fuse at the base. And it corresponds to the spiritually, like in addition to the physical body, but like the spiritual, the tree of knowledge of good and evil in both the microcosm and the macrocosm, which would the microcosm be the body, the macrocosm be the cosmos, and the ecliptic, the path of the sun.
You see
as
the
well
pine
as
cone there and the middle one too, guys, the pineal pine cone.
Yeah, that pine cone ain't in Vatican, St. Peter's, in Vatican City because it looks good, right? That is the Christos, right? The God mind, the anointed one.
If you needed a reminder that it comes from the east, what did they call the Kundalini? It's the serpent force, and look at these twin serpents. It's the same thing.
And you know what? I didn't send you a picture of this, but if you look up Uraeus, what's coming out of the sarcophagus, you know, on the heads of the Egyptian symbolism, that snake, that serpent, that fire, I'll type it into the chat right now so people know what to look up. Uraeus, it's Ureus. And
we're about to get into a different version of that idea, a different symbolism of that with Moses.
Yep, and is the city of light, So it's all corresponding to that fire, the ones with fire, the Illuminatus, right? The Illuminati, the pirates, pirates,
yep. The ones with fire.
Yes, the pyramid, middle fire, the eye, single, the eye of providence. There's many names for it. And so your spine is literally the conductor of your soul. So that's why,
bro,
Anubis,
the entire time we've been talking,
Hermes,
we've had an average of 33 people in the show. It's almost never wavered from that. 33 vertebra in the spinal column.
Yeah. Is it 32? And then the 33rd is where the...
I always heard it's 33. Hence the,
I could be wrong, yeah. It's been a hot minute.
Christ finished his ministry.
Yeah, the 33rd degree would be the cerebral spine, the fluid going back to the God mind. But I'd have to check me on that.
It's jumped up. It's
been
not
forever
anymore.
Oh, you fucking ruined it, motherfuckers.
No, I'm just kidding.
But so your spine is like the conductor of souls and the messenger of the gods, if you will, in your body. Like everything in your body is being communicated through your spine. That's why the rod of Hermes, the caduceus, the rod of Moses, the stick of Brahm, many others. Asclepius.
Anubis carries that same thing.
Yep. It's all used in both the microcosm and macrocosm, the body and heaven. And so this all has an electrical component of the mind being able to transmit messages to other parts of the body, and then for them to send the signals back or communicate their needs, right? Like when you have like spasms or muscles twitching, those are nerves like communicating. That's your brain firing up those nerves, trying to get something's not right. It's trying to wake them up or trying to get them back in function. So that would be the importance of this symbolism regarding the optic thalamus and the caduceus and your own vessel in both the microcosm, the body, and the macrocosm, the course of the sun through the cosmos, heaven. And so it's all really good knowledge, but you have to know what it is, and you can't just learn about it and sit on your ass and do nothing. You actually got to make your vessel worthy. You've got to make yourself worthy for the spiritual forces at work. And listen, it's not all fucking airy-fairy. Like, it's not something fun. Like, sometimes you don't want to be connected to the spiritual realm because it ain't a fucking bed of roses. You better be careful what you're looking at and what you're interacting with, because if you don't have strong volition, they'll eject you right out of your body.
The way I would put this, Dylan, is just that if you do go through this process of purifying your vessel and increasing this electric current, this kundalini, whatever, but then you continue with willful ignorance of that which and consuming that which is demonic, that which you know is wrong for you, it gets way amplified. It becomes like, it goes from stubbing your toe to getting hit in the face with a 2x4 to finding yourself bleeding in a ditch, dying, you know?
It's definitely something you don't want to play
metaphorically. With. Yeah, there's two mistakes in the path to truth, not starting and not going all the way. And going all the way just means staying on the path, continuing to purify your body temple, continuing to align with reality further and further. The way that the phi ratio, it gets closer and closer to being the exact same as the golden mean, but never reaches it. This is a relationship between life and spirit. Life can continually evolve and grow closer and closer to the divine harmony of what they call the golden mean ratio, but it never quite gets there. It infinitely recurses sort of closer and closer. And that's what life is. It's like, that's Jacob's ladder. It's infinite stairs, or I call it chutes and ladders. You can climb the ladders or go down the slides, and it's going to be fun while you're saying we, but when you hit the bottom, you might not like where you jump out at if you're jumping on a slide willfully ignorant of, sacrificing all the climbing you did. There's always going to be peaks and valleys in the waveform of life, but there's a big difference between the challenges that you're organically going to emerge into as you unfold your process versus the things that we create through self-sabotage and willful ignorance, which is probably the most dangerous thing to practice once you've begun the awakening process.
What is the etymology of Jacob? Come from Jacob, right? Jack, the son, and Ob, the father. Jacob, the father, the son. No one comes to the Father but through me. Yeah, Jacob's ladder.
Then what is his name after he's gone through half of his cycle, the first 6 months? Symbolically, that is.
You asking me, or you asking the?
Oh, I'm asking you. Audience? I was just rhetorically asking you so you could answer that. Kind of playing back and forth.
What were you asking?
Doesn't Jacob have a name change in his story?
You're gonna have to hit it.
Isn't Jacob the one that becomes renamed Israel?
Oh, you know what? I don't know off the top of my head. Okay. Israel's the old Phoenician name for Saturn, so
I'm pretty sure that's what happens with Jacob is unless I'm mixing up.
Hey man, don't ask questions you don't know the answers to, bro.
Fair
Put it all off on me when I'm not prepared. Yeah, that's the one thing that's like kind of challenging for me is like my books, it's kind of weird because they're kind of catching on now from going on like your show and like Crow's show, and now like Michael Sarian's show, but like
okay. Just for the record, I just go.
This work is all shit I've done. This is all shit I did over a decade ago. And I did the work and I let it go. So it's like people are expecting me to be like obsessive and know everything about this stuff. And it's like, guys, I just did this work a long fucking time ago and published what I did. And I let it go. It's not like something, I just did the work to show you that what's going on. I didn't do it to obsess over it. I didn't do it to constantly memorize it and regurgitate it. I had no intention of ever like being on podcasts and stuff. It's kind of something that just happened.
Yeah. So I was right, by the way, in the Old Testament, Jacob, who you've already explained why that's the son. His name is changed to Israel, which you've explained, or you just referenced that that's Saturn, but that word
Yeah.
has a bunch to
So the
detail in
winter,
it.
but it goes back to, yeah, the winter sun. So you
Exactly,
have the
the two
summer
halves of
sun,
the
the
year.
winter sun, or Jupiter Amun, Jupiter Amun,
Yep, they changed their name.
sun has.
They changed their name at the halfway point of the year. It's part of, but it's all encoded in a
I see what
story
you're
that
doing
people
now.
take it
I
as a
didn't see what
narrative.
you were, I didn't see what you were getting at originally. I was like, what is he asking? Something
Well,
about,
this whole experience has been great because it's really helped me solidify this stuff in my mind. That's part of why I wanted to do it and have this conversation with you. But let's jump into Moses here.
let's do it, man.
I just wanted, this wasn't on Dylan's original outline. I just think that the Moses symbolism is striking because they don't tell you in Sunday school when you're a kid that he had horns. What's that about?
You
Looks
got
a
the
lot like the
images up?
sun there, doesn't it? Or just
Awesome.
so
Yes.
people can see this.
So the etymological reason for this comes from the root word of Kronos, which would be KRN, right? Or in Hebrew, that would be Keren, which means horn, but also rays of the sun. And this is again because the symbolism encoded in the Hebrew language, which most Hebrews have no idea, because most people who speak Hebrew don't have any cultural connection to those who created it. It's the same reason most people who speak English have no cultural connection to England. It's a language that gets spoken through conquest. And those who created Hebrew, Greek, the Coptic, all that stuff, they come from the priest class, which was in Egypt, but was also in Ethiopia, which is why Hebrew shares 500 root words. And before that, all the way back to Hindustan, where all this stuff starts. And so going back to India, the horns are symbols of the sun's rays, the radiance of the sun. And that's why Keren has that dual meaning of both horn and sunlight or sun rays. And so that's why all the sun gods are depicted with horns. They're letting you know this is an aspect of the sun. Keren,
This is the
Kronos,
green man too.
Senunos, Pan, yeah,
The green
all of them.
man. Yeah,
And
all the
so
same.
Moses is no different. Moses comes from the name for the initiates in Egypt, which would be Moshe. And that literally means saved. It has two meanings: saved by the waters and saved from the waters. And that's, because Moses is the baby that's drawn. He's found in a basket and taken out of the basket, out of the river, the Nile. And so he's saved from the waters, literally in the story. And that's where the baptism of initiation comes from, on the Moshe, the initiate. And that would be symbolic of starting a new life, a new path. That's why you have people who are like born again, right? Rebirth. And it's symbolic of the sun.
And let me show
The
you what
sun
else
dies
is symbolic
and is
of
reborn.
real quick. This is one I threw in. But here's some places where there are occulted horns in the body. You just said this is the representation of new life, an initiated life. Well, what happens with the female reproductive system? We initiate a new life. And and then this is the superior brachium in the brain, which is not something I know a lot about, but I do know that there's this is the core where the left and right brain connect. If you look here at the top of this purple diamond, you'll see the head and the horns, and it almost looks like a figure, like a chest with his arms splayed out on a cross, and you can see the legs below in the middle of this diamond. This is
That's pretty wild.
It's wild. It's inside your brain, and this is the bridge between the left and right brain where the pineal gland sits. That little head shape is the pineal gland. That's what it looks like when you look at it from this slice. And so where do we concept new ideas, initiate new things into the world? It comes from what's the generative part of ourself? It's the left and the right brain working together, the pineal, the imaginal. This is why the symbolism of the horns also is the new initiation of a new life. It's connected to that as well. The beauty of the sacred science is it tells you about your body, internal nature, external nature, mind, physicality, everything is a perfect fractal symphony of correspondences that are way simpler than they're made out to be by these controller classes that want to confuse you with all the different names for everything. Just realize the only power that ever existed was this power, the generative force, and how it exists within you and how you express it. And that's the bridge between you and the creator. That's why your own creativity and your own art that you bring to the world through your unique skill set and talent is your spiritual path. And that's the only one there is for you. It's yours. It's the fruit of your consciousness. And that's why you can't fall into dogma being am God if you reverse it. Because that's what it is. The God inside you has been inverted and reversed, and you've been told a dogma about what God is. And it's really nothing more than the Tao, than the flow of eternal being and the life force that has no beginning, has no end, and manifests in these trinities and through these generative principles and polarity and rhythm and all the other hermetic laws that are just conceptualizations of something that's an internal and external eternal process. And it's one, in my opinion, Taoism and Hermeticism are one of the way less risky ways to learn about this stuff and not be all confuddled by supernaturalism, right? So that was kind of the end of the slides, but I'm ready to maybe start wrapping up, but I'm sure you might have some thoughts about that last thing I sprung on you with the reproductive system in the brain. That was my addition.
Well, I didn't want to leave Moses yet because that's also related to muses.
Yeah.
To muses. And so the muses, the 9 muses, those are the 9 months of the year where the Nile isn't flooded, right? And then that starts flooding back in the day. It started around the summer solstice. And so there are many parts of the Bible where people can reference or search about living water and drinking from me and getting everlasting life. And so you see this symbolism with Jesus pertaining to the Nile as well. You see it with Moses, you see the muses. And so all of this is encoded in Nilus, like Nilus, and that's Serapis, Serapis. Again, look up a picture of Serapis. It's Jesus. Sera, the fluid of the bull. Apis, or the fluid of the king. Right? And that's where the Latin word apis comes from, with bee. That's why we have apiaries, because the bee in the hieroglyphics is symbolic of a king in a monarchical society. So it's very fascinating when you start looking into the symbolism of all of this, and the river of the fiery serpent, being the same, corresponding to the path of the sun or the ecliptic. It's a lot to look into. My books go really deep into it. And I think it'll be very valuable for people to start getting into this stuff at a deep level, but you've got to raise your mind a little bit. So that's what the first book is for. Second book's going to be the meat, and then the third book, you're going to get into what we're talking about with Moses and the muses and all this stuff. This is just kind of like an appetizer for it, because it is cavernous. And like you've just demonstrated, one subject bleeds into a bunch of other subjects. It's like having a massive river with a bunch of different branches, and they all split apart and then reconnect later on down the road, and you're like, oh, I see how that all works out. So it's really worth your time, and I think that's a good place, like you said, to wrap up. And if you want, we can hang out and see what the chat has to say, or whatever you want. I'm down for whatever.
Let's give it a minute and see if there's any burning questions in the chat that we might address, but we've got a 3-hour video more or less right now, so that's quite a lot to digest for future people down the line.
How long were we on?
3 hours. We've been on 3 hours, bro.
Oh man, we hit it out of the park.
Yeah, we did. I knew it would probably be a long one, but this has been awesome. We definitely hit everything.
Adept guidance is still stunned by the mucoid plaque. Well, then you got that in you. You ain't adept at anything.
It's true. That's like the first step of one of the first steps required is the and a continual step required is continuing to purify the body. While we wait,
Actually, I've heard. Oh, go ahead.
If people want to drop any questions, we'll entertain those for a minute. But there were a couple of slides that showed the Trinity from other traditions that I skipped over. If you want to tell us about those real quick, I think it's just 2 slides.
Yeah, go ahead. I mean, you can just see it with everything. But I mean, it's proof. Like you see it in the Norse mythology, the Buddhist mythology, the Hindu mythology, everything. And I don't know if anyone can read that, but these are segments of book 3. So like while I was writing these, while I was writing my book, I would use these as kind of like promotional to like kind of get people's appetites, And Deva comes from the Chaldee word, and that means good. Dave, right?
Like
and
King David?
Gut, yeah. Gut in German, good. Right? God, just like theos and the, or Ilbraham, and in Italian is the. So you see that in our own language, there's deity. Yeah, there's like, it's all encoded in our language. And so I can't even find these pictures, these images are taken from so many years ago that like if I were to just type in like Echo Deva Tramuti or the Trinity, just all that stuff, it doesn't really it doesn't return the same image searches that it used to, so it's hard. This stuff is kind of lost. That's why I kind of put it in book 3. The reason it's more expensive than the others is it's color imagery. So I'm referencing what I'm talking about because I knew in the time not too long from now they're going to be scrubbing the internet from all this stuff, so you can't see it anymore. But I was just going to say something about Trinity, 3 gods. Oh man.
Yeah, it's everywhere though. Now. It is everywhere.
It is.
And I don't think we have any questions yet, so.
Well, we can wrap it up and then take it from there. You can always if you get enough people on your Telegram or whatever, and you want to hop back on one of those, we might be able to do that at another date.
Yeah,
but it's kind of challenging when you don't have an audience for this stuff. It's not, it's not really. That's the problem with our culture is, if this was adept guidance, it's called a joke. Your arrogance shows how little you know too. Yeah, and your sensitivity shows how you don't know how to handle a joke. So
I took it as a joke, bro.
for demonstrating.
Yeah, we're trying to
give you
good information about cleansing being.
And this is why I don't like interacting with people, because it's just this pussification of our culture, and it's filled with cowardly people who can't take jokes, they misinterpret everything. So I think it is a good place to wrap up, and we don't need to interact with the audience because I don't want to. I just see that, and it's just like, that's what we get. We give our time to the audience to actually interact, and that's the one that shows up.
It's just one. It's just one. I'm on both. I'm on everyone's side, but I do think we should be a lot less sensitive. There's definitely no harm in what you said, and there is a lot of
ban that guy
in the chat.
Kick that guy out of the saloon. We don't need to see that person here again.
I let him poke me twice maybe before I do that, but
well, you're nicer than me.
Yeah, I know, right?
All right, man.
We killed it though. This was actually, we brought things to life. It was to change up that phrase. Like, this is amazing stuff. I knew it would be a great Beltane extravaganza here. Oh yeah, why don't you? I think I've actually. Yep, I share your book so often. I've got a book.
You can just type the name of them in, Tina. It's really not hard. They're available at any type of online store. You're going to be able to find them.
I got a bookmark
very easy
at the top of my toolbar. I just literally right-click.
Ebook form. They're in ebook form. They're in paperback. Book 1 is available in audiobook form at through Audible, ACX, or whatever it's called, iTunes, Amazon, you name it. And then book 2 has been finished and it's just at the last stages of post-production where we got to submit it, and then it'll probably be like another 3 to 4 weeks before it gets approved and is up, and then book 3 is on the way.
Audiobooks of those things for those that don't want to read it, but it really helps to put it in. I'd take it in both ways because you learn it, different things through hearing and through reading, because you can see the words on the page and see the phonetic connections in that way, and then you can hear it with the out loud reading. So I'd go for both. Personally, it's really good, helpful stuff.
And
Still
give
standing
me
says
pizza.
the wiki definition on mucoid plaque is pseudoscience. So that's hilarious. So there you go. That's what they don't want you to think about, right?
Thank you, Still Standing, and thank you, Give Me Pizza. Those are very nice comments from both of you. Appreciate that. And I hope the work serves you well. You know, I think what's nice about what I've done is I've laid a foundation for you to go off and do your own work. And your work will probably be much better than mine because you won't have to spend thousands of hours reading obscure books and learning through experiences and stuff that I had to spend. You know, that's what's great is like the more work we do, the easier we make it for those who come after us. And then the more the knowledge quickens, comes to life and expedites.
Right, because a lot of us have read a lot of books and things, but we didn't have the keys to decipherment. But now going forward with the formulas in this presentation alone to see, oh, everything's about the seasons. Like that will allow you to see the pattern recognition in anything you come across later. So it's like you won't be confused by the things that you see as badly.
Look at this. Look at this gamma passive aggressive bullshit from Adept Guidance. Haha, dude, talk about sensitivity, winky face. Oh, is that what you do when you talk shit, Adept Guidance? You just do a little winky face? Get the fuck out of here, man. I'm done. I can't.
Right.
The good does not outweigh the bad with me. And that guy needs to be booted the fuck out of my sphere of influence, period.
All
Gamma.
Right. We'll wrap it up, but it's been fun.
You sit there and make winky faces while the real men serve truth and do the real work that needs doing in this word. Gamma Adept. You're an Adept Gamma. Change your name. That's what it is.
Okay. Well, nothing ruined by all that. This was so phenomenal. And I definitely don't like to see that type of passive aggressive thing in the chat. Like there's a difference between sensitivity and holding your boundaries. And
no, undelete his message. Let the audience for the replay see the message.
Okay.
Let it be up because people need to see this passive aggressive, cowardly, inauthentic, slinking around the interweb, fake ass man energy that's so out of balance. It's this feminine gamma useless eater energy infesting everything. We don't want that in our sphere of influence.
Because I can't re-add it. I actually was trying to remove the guy so we didn't have to keep going back and forth, but I just deleted the comment instead accidentally. So anyway, everyone's
let's get me out of here right before
Get Dylan out of here.
Say something
He's jumping the shark, everybody.
Yeah. But everyone who did tune in, thank you, and I hope the knowledge that we delivered here serves you well in your own research and your own journey in your own service to truth. And thank you for tuning in.
Well said. Yeah, thanks everybody. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll catch you guys next time. Can't re-add it. I actually was trying to remove the guy so we didn't have to keep going back and